another episode of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. We've got the usual crew here today. I'm your host. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me, Josh Torres.
Akka, Yaroze.
We have Mikhail Benani,
Barely.
Adam Vitale,
Hello.
James Galizio,
Hey, folks.
Chao Minwoo.
Let's do it.
We're recording this in halfway through November. We're starting to finally wrap up some of the games we've been playing throughout the year. This week, we're going to be focusing on a specific November release, one that is finally out. Or is it out yet? I don't know.
It is out. Yes.
Okay.
It is.
I make that assumption like, oh, we can talk about it, therefore it is out. But that's not always the case. There's a rare case where we can fully talk about it, but it doesn't actually come out for like a week. But we can talk about it. It is out, finally released after several delays. We're going to be talking about Inazuma 11 Victory Road from level 5. So that's going to be our main topic for this week's episode of the podcast. But as we also have a state of play that occurred, didn't have a ton of news, but had a few surprises in there that we'll talk about. We'll probably again dip our toes into Dragon Quest because there's more to talk about there. And as always, we have some games to talk about in the next quarter, Q1 2026. Finally starting getting those details and media releases for games releasing after the holidays. So that's going to be our lineup for today. Without further ado, our coverage for Inazuma 11 is going to come from Josh Torres primarily. Has anyone else also played this, Mikhail? I don't know if you've touched it since it's come out or no.
I think.
I mean, I've
Mikhail's played
literally
a
been
little
playing
bit,
it for like 4 days and
Yeah.
like barely
Oh, okay.
slept. So
Yeah.
yeah.
There you go. Well, we're going to start out with Josh.
Okay, yeah. Inazuma 11 Victory Road is a game that it feels like it's been in development forever. We've talked about like the very, very extensive development history of it, where even before Victory Road came out, there were like at least 2 Inazuma 11 game projects before it that were both started and canceled, and they just totally missed their time window to release because that was in conjunction with like a multimedia push for Inazuma 11 in Japan back then, because Level 5 loves doing their multimedia stuff with their IPs. And so it's had a long story history of like, okay, what is going on with this game? Is there gonna be a new Inazuma 11 ever coming out? And that was from when the first Inazuma game new project was coming out. That was like around 9-ish years ago. And then throughout that 9-year span, that started development, got canceled. Another game got greenlit, developed, canceled. And then I think around 2020 to 2021-ish is like when this Victory Road project for Inazuma 11 started coming together. Like, hey, they're developing this in earnest now. And it seemed like, okay, they're actually going to release this one. And I'm not like a big Inazuma 11 person. I knew of the games. I never really got into them. I know that the anime has had like some international presence. They were never really big in North America, but I know in other parts of the world, like Inazuma 11 is pretty highly regarded. And I was like, okay, this seems like the big game that newcomers can delve into. They were throughout its marketing push over the last two-ish years. They were talking about like we're doing this, we're doing that, we're adding so many modes, we're having this whole chronicle mode that will have story match recaps of all the previous Inazuma 11s that came before this game, going back to the first game, and then like its sequels, and I think some of them were from anime projects and so forth. And that's all chronicle mode. I have not touched that mode in the 30-ish hours I've spent with this game. I've only touched the main story mode, and I've really, really, really enjoyed that. That story mode doesn't require any prior Inazuma 11 knowledge. You can go into that fresh, and coming from me who's never really been into the games at all, like I'm really having a great time. I'm just about like at the precipice of the final match in that main story mode, and very close to completing it and then starting the other modes. But it it's weird for me to say this because this game this year has already had so many great games, so many great stories, so many great characters. But within just just slightly under 30 hours I've had with this game to me already has like one of like the top 5 main protagonists already of this year. The story mode works really well with you because it has such a compelling main character. So before we get into this, I will set some ground, housekeeping things so our listeners don't go insane as we talk about this. One, I will I will say soccer and football interchangeably. At no point am I talking about American football at all. Because I know in North America we call it soccer. In many other places outside of North America they call it football. I will just use these interchangeably because I've heard so much of it in the past week. So at no point are we talking about American football at all. So don't yell at me about that.
What do they call it in game?
So
I'm not saying it makes you right or wrong. I'm just curious.
They're leading me to number 2. I'm playing with JP audio with English subtitles, and in the Japanese audio they say saka, so soccer. But the English subtitles is for the international audience, and the English subtitles term it as football. So that's how they're doing it.
Damn, they're catering to the American audience.
Yeah, I mean, that's not like
I'll say football. Yeah.
For English subtitles, saying football, that's more for your international audience, not the American audience. But obviously they call it soccer in the Japanese audio. 2 or 3, depending on how this is working. They have different names for a lot of the main cast between English and Japanese. For example, in the English localized name for the main character, it's Destin Bellows. In the Japanese, his Japanese name is Unmei Sasanami. There is a Japanese name toggle that at first boot up that you can toggle on or off at any time. If you're playing with Japanese audio, you can have their names match up with their Japanese names. So that's what this Japanese name toggle is for. So for if you're playing it the Japanese audio, you're not gonna go insane when they say Unmei. The English subtitles won't say Des, it'll say Unmei on that. So when I'm referring to to characters' names, all I really know them by is their Japanese names because I'm playing with Japanese audio with that Japanese name toggle. So if anyone's confused, like what characters are you talking about? I'm playing with Japanese names. So that's kind of a weird ground rules to establish, but that's how they decided to do it. I'm happy that they did it, but I know it's a lot.
I have a question for you, Josh.
Go
Do
for
you
it.
create an avatar character when you play this game when you start?
So yes, at the very start you can create your own avatar character. It's a fairly in-depth character creator. It's pretty great. But in the purposes of the main story mode of this, you don't play as your avatar for a good chunk of it. Like you can't even recruit them till like I don't know 15 to 20 hours into it, depending on how you're going, because your main character is Unmei. Your avatar character does exist in the academy that you're attending. Like you see them on campus, just chilling out, by themselves. And then eventually you'll unlock a player scout feature in main story mode that you can recruit the character that you made in that main story mode and have them join the team and level up with them. But there are other modes where you can use your create a character and use them in other modes, and I'm not exactly sure, since I haven't really touched any other modes, how that manifests, but they're more easily accessible, while in main story mode it takes a while to actually recruit them into the team, and so forth.
Yeah, I was asking a friend what this game plays like, and he has like the worst way of describing this game. He's like, "Oh, you create avatar, but instead you play some hobo." I'm like, "Who is this hobo?"
Okay, so I'll get into that, but before I get into the story, I guess I'll be upfront and say this game plays like the main. Obviously, the main mode is is playing soccer, but it's like a soccer RPG where the game flow is more like Blitzball from FF10 rather than like FIFA or something like, I don't know, Rocket League. It's not
Winning
Twitch based.
11.
Yeah, it's not Twitch based all action. It's very much you're running down the field and you uh run into people and there are like face-offs against them and you choose options from a menu to decide what, like, how you proceed forward in that encounter. For example, if you're running down the field as a middle field and you run into one of the defenders, you get into this thing called a focus battle. You can go left or right and try to break through their defense. And there's all decided by like your stats and their stats. But during these focus battles, you or the opponent can kind of use, let's say, a magic spell equivalent, because you have a tension meter at the top left corner of your screen, and think of that as your mana bar, and you can earn mana by resolving these focus battles. Whether you win or lose, obviously winning these focus battles and breaking through gets you more mana, but you can spend that mana in these focus battles and other parts of the match to execute abilities that will raise and buff your stats, to make it more likely for you to succeed in that encounter. So and these like abilities are very over the top. They can go from like very simple, like, kicking the ball over them with the heel of your foot, a very flat simple maneuver, to something like you're summoning like a JoJo stand to fucking break through them, or something like you're conjuring up like the face of an Oni spirit behind you to scare them and proceed on forward. It gets crazy. It has so many special attack abilities like that. And when it's time to score a goal, and the main obviously the main goal of these soccer matches is to score goals, have more goals by the end of the match, you win. But when you're trying to score a goal, you're not thinking about like, oh, what's the angle I should take to like score a shot, like, to get a goalie off of their like blind spot or anything. It's nothing like that. It's more so both your goalkeeper and their goalkeeper have HP bars, and you're trying to whittle down those HP bars, so when it's time for you to like score a shot that has like more attack power than their HP, it'll break through them and score that goal. So when it's time to score, it'll do a slow mo where you have several options from the character that has the ball about to shoot. You can obviously shoot directly. You can pass to another player and then shoot with them. But throughout this whole screen, you see their remaining HP value. That's without any modifiers. And so what you can do is like, should I cast a magic spell or an ability to raise the attack power of my base shot, so it's like additive, and then it'll be basically buffing your shot, or should I pass it or use an ability when I pass it over to my teammate to further buff this shot and raise its attack value? So this like attack shot is going over to them, and they can either shoot directly or execute their own ability to further add on to the attack power of this upcoming shot that I'm trying to do. During this whole process, when you're doing this, there are numerous other factors that can come into play. For example, if there is a defender in the trajectory of that shot, that defender might have an ability that can reduce the attack power of your incoming shot. There's also a castle wall mechanic where if there's a defender positioned in the trajectory of that shot, they can place up like a castle wall, and think of that as like a shield that will subtract from the attack power if your shot goes through that wall. So it is very stat based, numbers based. A lot of like powers that can occur that are all factored into this like attack that you're firing off, and that's kind of where the most that's why it's like an RPG, because it is um contextualizing what you're doing in soccer, but like in a much more over the top um form, with like stat buffs, stat debuffs, special attack multipliers. There's even like an elemental system that raises the attack value or defense value of these shots, depending on if like an element is advantageous to the upcoming shot or um in that aspect. So that's probably like the most concise way I can explain it. It's like it's more like Blitzball, more so than a real time soccer sim like FIFA or Winning 11 or so forth.
I'm like, hey, I love Blitzball. And getting volley shot to engage in Blitzball was always hard as hell. So it's kind of cool that they have like that whole mechanic about passing before shooting in this concept.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Did you want to say anything, Mikhail? Because I know I'm about to go into story, and I don't want to like, I don't want to like drown out the conversation, and you're wanting to speak.
I haven't played much of the story yet because, like as you said, right, like it feels like the game is structured so that you play the story and then you do the other stuff, and I saw that as well. But then I had to like try out the other modes because I needed to test this out. So I played some online. I played the Chronicle mode a bit here and there, but like the story mode is it's so here's some background. Like I thought I had owned Inazuma 11 on 3DS, but it turns out I didn't. I played it when I borrowed a friend's 3DS, and I didn't even finish it. It was just the game which was localized in North America as Inazuma 11 as a digital title. That's the only thing I had experience with. I've not watched the anime or anything. But like you said, they position this as a perfect entry point. The cutscenes are really nice. Josh, did you play that game Exceed released Shadowverse? I think it was called Champions Battle.
I don't think so. That I don't remember that title ringing a bell at all.
Okay, so I have not played the free to play Shadowverse, like going on a small tangent, but Shadowverse Champions Battle was like this. Uh, it felt like a blend of Yokai Watch and Hearthstone. When I say that, I mean like Yokai Watch is this, the city exploration structure, and it basically had Hearthstone style card battles. And I'm kind of getting a similar vibe over here in the opening hours of the story, where you essentially have this like school you can explore, do some random side stuff, quests here and there. But then your actual battles are the rock paper scissors style thing, which has like these skills and all that, and you have your own equipment and stuff. So it's kind of blowing my mind how they've translated this thing which I thought level 5 perfected on the 3DS, with releasing these like dense like sort of school and cities you can explore, even though it's not like a Yakuza game where you have like a ton of stuff to do. But it's like they've perfectly translated over what they did on 3DS to like the HD era with this game. And I feel like I said the same thing with Fantasy Life earlier this year, but I don't know how they've done like 2 out of 2. They're like crazy, like 9 years of dev. They just like held on to both of these together and they dumped them out like, here, enjoy 2 games of forever. So like, yeah, I'm just blown away by the story and how it just feels like I'm playing a blend of a 3DS game and an anime, but made for the modern era, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so
That's all I can say about the story.
I didn't know. Like, I thought you said Shadow Champions. Then I looked at it. I was like a Shadowverse Champions Battle. I still didn't play that either way from Xseed. But as you said, so it's the start of story mode is really funny. I'm gonna try my best to not spoil, because I know you're still early on and Chow's interested in maybe picking it up. So I'll try my best.
Before you start, I have one question.
Go for
just
it.
one question.
Yeah.
Sorry. So the 3 modes are story, chronicle, and then just like multiplayer, or is there 3?
So what my understanding is, there's story mode, then there's like a new game plus mode that'll be unlocked at a later patch, and then there's extended story which unlocks after story mode. And that's from my understanding from my friend who beat the game just earlier, it's like that's more of like these very very high level teams that you would have to grind for to like beat. Like it's more like a challenge mode that unlocks after story mode against new teams. And then there's Chronicle mode where it is a very very expansive mode that goes through like has a lot of stages recapping each story stage match from all prior Inazuma 11 games. So that's like a mode that's like I don't know 100 plus hours easily. And you can recruit characters from that mode to like make your own team. And I'm not sure exactly how it works, because I know like some characters drop from it. I know there's like gacha mechanic where it doesn't use any real real money currency, but you do earn like some sort of currency in game to roll for these characters as well. And obviously one of the big things market in this game is like there's over fucking 5,400 characters you can like obtain for it, and it's not like all of these characters are like unique, fleshed out characters from the stories past, because my understanding of Inazuma 11 is one of the main tentpole mechanics throughout this whole series is like this scouting feature where there's like a lot of like generic characters that you can just like scout into your team, and there's like usually in every entry there's like a large handful of them, so they try to basically have those entire rosters come back for this game. So a good chunk of that 5,400 plus number are those scout characters, but that's still like in terms of like significant characters from the past games, maybe you're thinking like maybe 1,000 to 1,500 of them, maybe. I'm not exactly sure, but
It's
that's my
crazy that you're like
understanding.
about 1,500 of the 5,000 characters.
Yeah,
Like
I
these
was like
numbers
maybe.
are these are big numbers.
Yeah, I know. And then there's like other modes, like there's like a create a town builder mode. I don't know exactly how that factors into all the other modes. I know that exists somewhere in the game and you can do that. And then obviously there's this whole the multiplayer mode where you have ranked, unranked, and I'm not exactly sure how many modes are in that multiplayer mode exactly. And I know that for people who like this feature, like I used to like this feature, like in Soul Calibur, for example. You can like set like AI versus AI like matches as well. Like I know some Dragon Ball Budokai games had that, and then Soul Calibur obviously did like in some of their games. So I know that there was that this game has that because that's what they show off in the trailer. I'm trying to think what else the other modes. I don't know. And there's a whole bunch of like collectibles. Like I took a peek at the gallery mode because obviously if there's a gallery mode in any game, I like to take a peek like okay, how many of these are there? And there's like over 360 gallery images that you can unlock in this game, which is quite a lot. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah. Um, but yeah, at the beginning of when you start up story mode, it gives you like a slide with text, and it tells you like, hey, it'll be a while till you get to the soccer. In the first several hours of the story mode, there will be hardly any soccer. Um, Stick with it. But just know that there won't be soccer for a while. That's what it basically says. It gives you a warning straight up. Like, all right, what did they mean by this? And it's like, and sure enough, like you don't see like your first hint of soccer, like even the soccer tutorial, until like maybe 3.5 hours in to that story. And that's like the very bare bones basic like soccer mechanics tutorial. Um, because at the very start of the story mode, like the soccer is frowned down upon, like the where by your main character and the academy that he's attending. So your main character, very beginning of story mode, Unmei is transferring to this um academy that does not have a soccer club. He is specifically going to this academy because it does not have a soccer club. He, as far as you know, at this point in time, at the beginning of story mode, he does not like soccer. He kind of detests soccer in the sense that, like, the very first thing Unmei says in story mode is like, is equivalent to like, "I wish soccer didn't exist in the world," and you begin to get into why he thinks like that. This is very, 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 very minor spoilers of like to even start talking about this character. It's important to know like where he's coming from. It is revealed like maybe first like hour or two into the game as well. Unmei is a character that used to love soccer in his childhood, played it a lot, but he developed a heart illness that meant he couldn't like play soccer anymore. Like whatever condition that he developed, he could not play soccer because it puts too much of a strain on his body, which would would threaten his life with the illness that he has. So your main character is a person that can't even play soccer in the first place. He is more of a schemer, a tactician, a coach, strategist, and that's a really interesting perspective to jump off from because many of the characters and rivalries and opposition that you face in this game, they recognize like, hey, you guys have a very skilled team, but like the beating heart of your team that makes this all work is your strategist. Like they begin to like see right away like, oh, he's like the biggest threat, even though he can't take onto the soccer field. He's still the biggest threat because he can analyze like the situation very, very keenly in ways that no one can, and so forth. The and the the reason why he detests soccer uh, is because of that illness. Because like soccer was stripped away from him forcefully. He couldn't, obviously because of his condition. It felt like he couldn't be a part of soccer anymore, and a large chunk of the early parts of that story is reinvigorating his passion for soccer. Like, and what are the catalysts? What are the sparks? What are the events that trigger this? There's a very, I guess, I don't know. There's a really crazy way to like introduce the story, but because when you think about this like a kid's soccer game, but one of the very first events, like the meet where you meet like kind of like your first quote unquote friend, is there's this school delinquent. He's pretty tall, looks mean, has like very spiky pink hair. His name is Joji Sakurazaki, and like your first real encounter with him is Unmei is going home. It's nighttime, and he sees Joji about to mess up some thugs down an alleyway. He just catches to get a glimpse of it, and he's able to like see right away. Like you see like an analysis of Joji's body through the lens of Unmei, and he recognizes right away. Like Joji has like really amazing legs for soccer. Like it's like a 1 in a million build, like very strong. You can tell that like this guy has been like, he's in great shape and like has the perfect build for soccer. And he doesn't really get involved in that until he recognizes that one of the thugs is about to hit his Joji's legs with an iron pipe. So he gets in the way of that fight, and right as about that iron pipe is about to swing towards Joji's legs, it hits the back of Unmei's head instead. So the very start is like he wakes up at a hospital because he took the hit, and that kind of is what starts is the start of your relationship towards friendship with Joji Sakurazaki and all that stuff. You start to learn about his background and so forth. This all culminates sometime down the road of the baseball team at the academy kind of messing around with a soccer ball, like totally out of they're basically disgracing like the sport of soccer because soccer is so looked down upon at that academy. There's a whole history that the story mode goes into about an incident that happened 5 years ago at that academy of why the reputation of soccer is so down in the ditches with that. And Unmei and Joji are both, speaking to each other until that ruined soccer ball, is passed to them from the baseball club. And both of them, like Unmei especially gets fucking pissed because like he's like they're disgracing soccer, even though soccer was stripped away from his life, he doesn't want soccer to be like disgraced and insulted like that. And so the first big story arc in this main story mode is Unmei challenges the baseball team to soccer so they can no longer disgrace soccer, and you start having to find meet the other main characters, recruit them into like a very bare bones soccer club to face off against this baseball team, and you start getting to learn these characters along the way. This story mode is really, 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 really compelling. I can the way I'm describing it doesn't know justice at all. I understand that, but it is one of the like it is one of the clearest and most sincere examples of a playable shonen anime. This whole story mode, as Mikhail mentioned earlier, is like playing through an anime season. Um, but you're seeing it firsthand and seeing that rise from like soccer being fucking just down in the ditches to slowly recruiting your members of the soccer club, and so forth, and then eventually getting to that stage of the story mode where you start participating in tournaments to get into nationals for soccer. Go for it, Mikhail. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, so like I'm glad you explained beforehand about how they have Japanese voices and they have the Japanese name options. But what I was curious about is, so I've been playing with English voices so far because I wanted to try both for a few hours of the main story and then I decide what I stick with. How do they handle the commentary? Like, do they subtitle it?
No, they don't. Not in the middle of matches. I mean, it's very like if you know basic like Japanese, it's very easy to know what they're saying, but they don't subtitle it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I was curious about
yeah.
because like in the Atelier Ryza games, they stopped doing dubs, right? For Atelier, it's just
Yeah.
Japanese voice acting, and what they do now is there's a lot of banter during combat or like just during exploration where Ryza will comment on just something you've picked up. They don't subtitle that, which is kind of annoying, even though it's probably like just generic. Oh, look what I found.
Yeah.
It feels lazy that they don't subtitle that. So I was just curious about this because so far I saw a lot of like the trailers they released, the English final trailers, like they did trailer 1 and 2 before, and then they did trailer 3 like 2 days ago. The English voices over there are kind of iffy, so a lot of people just wrote it off, but I wanted to try both. What I've noticed is the commentary is really nice in English, at least so far, but the actual voice direction seems a bit off for some characters. So like ideally I wish there was a way I could play with English commentary but have Japanese voices. Obviously that's like too many moving
Yeah.
parts or whatever. So I was just curious how they handle this because I don't know what I'll do. Like I'm now that I've like hopefully finished all the testing, which we'll talk about in a bit, but yeah, I want to just play the game normally now. So I don't know if I'm going to stick to English or Japanese or what, but
I really
I
like
don't
the
know. Who
Japanese
knows?
voice acting. Yeah, the just
Yeah.
I haven't touched English dub. I don't really, I don't really care to. But I really like the Japanese voice cast for this game. It's all very well done, at least on that side. But as for interactivity, as you also mentioned, Mikhail, is in place of like because soccer isn't prevalent for several hours in story mode. It does have like this basic rock paper like not rock paper scissors turn-based ATB where there's a turn order of your characters, but it's not a true turn-based mode where like it pauses all actions. It's more like ATB. There's like an action gauge that fills up, and then once that action gauge fills up, you can choose between rock, paper, or scissors. It unlocks an auto mode also very early on, and but basically when you hover over characters in the screen, it's like sort of like Dragon Quest, where it's like it does a first person turn based perspective. So you see the enemies all lined up in front of you. Um, I guess I should mention it's like old school Dragon Quest perspective, not the newest where you can see your characters. It's like first person, you can only see the enemies lined up in front of you, and they have like the a symbol of like rock paper scissors. You choose the command that beats their symbol over them, and that'll do extra damage for it. You can automate this very like once that feature opens up very quickly, and the only thing you would have to manage is like recovery items, because you do have an HP bar. That and those recovery items replenish per battle. It's not like a very. It's meant to be a very basic thing. It's basically a holdover gameplay system till the actual real soccer um thing. And there's also like a special attack super that you build up whenever you attack, and you would have to just manually choose that if you want to use that, and so forth. It's like I said, this whole like turn-based battle thing isn't really the main focus. It's it's functional. It's nothing really special. I think the one of the most amusing things about it is all very context sensitive, in the sense that like your rock paper and scissors command, what they represent all do different things depending on the context. For example, one of the side quest chains that you partake in is like this grandma that constantly gets lost because she's playing like a Pokemon Go equivalent, and whenever you face her off in battle because she's not listening to like reason, like your rock paper scissors commands are like rock might be show her a phone, like you're trying to like give her directions, and scissors might be like try to talk to her, and so forth, and then the other command to be like try to gesture like or point somewhere in a direction, and so forth. So like what you're actually doing is not throwing out rock paper and scissors in front of like a character. It's like your action is dictated by like the context of it. Another thing might be like um this this noodle restaurant is trying to goad you to come in, and you're like and your three different options are like trying to deny their advances in different ways, whether it's like shaking your head or like forming like an X with your arms or whatnot, trying to like communicate to them no, pretty much. um so there's fun stuff around the edges in terms of in that aspect, but the rock paper scissors thing, it's not really the main focus, but it is there to kind of spice up a little bit of gameplay, because it's trying to tell like a very earnest story about like your growth into loving soccer again, and then forming as a proper soccer team. And it is a pretty, like I said, it's a really captivating tale, because you are coming from the perspective of someone that like can no longer participate in the sport directly. What are the ramifications of that mentally, and how that affects the people around them. And to not spoil anything, but there's another side of this story that they present um um barely, some hours into it, where you see another character's perspective, where they are very, very, very talented at the sport, but they have lost the passion to play the sport for fun or earnestly, or like like they're not really having fun playing it, but they acknowledge that they're good at it, and they're kind of running through the paces of just like they're winning, but they don't feel anything from it. And how does that contrast in the way that like your main character is coming at it from? So there's like really interesting thematics going on, and the chemistry and synergy that Unmei has with the rest of not only his teammates but also the opposition that he faces along the way. Like a good chunk of the opponents that you face have like really interesting stories to tell, and where they're coming. Um, and like I said, I won't say much else, but because this is like unfolding like an anime, there are things that happen along the way. Um, like when you're watching an anime and it goes like into its second half, things happen, and stakes are raised and stuff. So that is like it's been I've been having an incredible time. There's also stuff like but once you get your proper soccer team, you can outfit them with like different equipment, different accessories to raise their stats. Whenever you are about to like do a proper football match to advance the story. There are prerequisites to start that match. You'll have minimum attack and defense value thresholds that you have to meet to start it, along with like a checklist of like, here are things you have to make sure to do because they will be relevant in the match. Like you have to one of the early ones will be like you have to set this tactic into your tactics formation because this will be a relevant thing that happens in the course of this upcoming match. Um, and so forth. There are definitely funny requirements. They're like, man, that's really why is that a requirement? And then once you see the story match, which are like the highlights of this mode, like the story battles are like pretty fucking awesome. Um, you'll see how that culminates. And the story battles are intense because they are set up in a way where you always have your back to the wall, and you kind of have to claw yourself out of like a really disadvantageous position because of the way of how the plot frames this opponent, what their tactics are, and how Unmei decides to strategize around that. You sort of have to meet like story action requirements in the middle of a soccer match for the next story trigger to appear to advance that match's events. So like the very first like qualifiers match, um you are specifically told, do not save your strength, do not try to score in the first half, and the only time you get to play in that very first qualifiers match is at the second half, and you are down 3-0, and you are tasked to use everything you've learned up to this point to win and score for at least 4 points in the second half, and that is a pretty tight time crunch that you're expected to do because that is the strategy of that match. Then that's just the very first one. It gets crazier as more mechanics and systems and things unfold, and it always feels exhilarating. Like it feels like you're really playing for your life out there, which is really fun.
I actually do kind of like that as like, how do we make a match more challenging as an RPG without just making their defense numbers. I'm still thinking this in like the context of Blitzball,
Yeah, let's go
like
for it.
obscene or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Or you don't want to have the story incongruence of this being like a high stakes match, but then it's just like any other match. It's simple on paper, but the idea of like, because of story, pacing, and because of the context, you are now down 3 and you have to win. I like that in terms of a way to kind of tweak the difficulty up and down with the RPG systems without compromising like the game mechanics.
Yeah, yeah, and to even like, and to even go like full like to fully commit to like being like almost like a playable shonen anime. There is, especially at like the first few hours, there's a lot of like animated cutscenes that you watch, and some of them can be like 15 to 20 minutes long at times. So it just feels like at times you're watching an anime because there are story things happening. Um, that like a lot is trying to establish, but it feels reasonably well paced. It doesn't really wear out its welcome, and that has its pros and cons because there are definitely some parts of the story that I wish were more fleshed out, but I understand why they were more restrained about it because it definitely has the risk of like if we were to fully flesh this out, it would feel dragged out if we were to do this poorly as well. So I'm still iffy on some parts of the story in terms of like I kind of wish this had a little bit more build up or a little bit more of this element or faction or a little bit of this. I wish they delved into this a bit more or they took more time with this, but I understand why they did it. It's not as obscene as like Megaton Musashi's like new Wired's new story at the very end of the game, where that all that new story content they added for Wired that wasn't in any prior Megaton Musashi releases in Japan. That shit was all just like mega fucked rush. That was like light speed, like no time to breathe. Things are just happening left and right, and like there's like just it was like it's such a hurried pace. I'm like, man, this story mode was excellent up until this point where there's like they just kind of that's totally fucked it. Like I still like that story mode, but the new parts of that story that they added for that release were like it was a total shit show. Like things were just happening left and right immediately. While this
Yep,
one is
sometimes less story is better.
yeah. While this one feels like it feels way more natural in the way that you're progressing through. And there are definitely some parts that I'm like, is this game really aimed towards like children? Because there are some parts of that story mode that are like pretty heavy thematically. Like there are some mature themes that I'm like, man, if I feel like this, I wonder how much like a kid might feel if they get exposed to this, man. That's crazy. But I adore it. I adore it a lot, and I could talk on and on about it, but I don't want to spoil it for Mikhail. I don't want to spoil it for Chow. I don't want to spoil it for any listener who is interested in giving this game a shot. I whether you're waiting for a sale or or you got interested, I highly recommend playing through the story mode. It is a delight. I love all these characters a lot. They've earned my adoration for them. I really like the main cast a lot.
And you had the difficult job of basically selling us on the story without having to go like, well, this happens first and this happens second, and this happens third. So it's a tough bind to like review. Like I've never reviewed like a TV show or anything like that, but for people who do have to do that, it's got to be
Oh yeah,
difficult.
yeah. And
Unless you do like the context of like I'm just going to spoil everything and then review it, but you don't want to do that. So
right, exactly. And like I said, everything I said like is poorly explained because of, like trying to like say this in like in this format is not ideal. And I'm not trying to like sell people on that, but I'm just expressing that like, hey, this is what I think, and I think it's definitely worth people's time. Like, this is something I'll probably we'll see how end of the year discussions go, but depending on like how what I play and then the other modes that I play, like I I really adore this game. And I think it's really awesome to see like that the reception towards it because it has like achieved and maintained that overwhelmingly positive rating on Steam from user reviews. Like people who play it think very highly of it. But even like
Mhm.
we don't like I don't like to like relying or heavily leading on Steam charts numbers a lot. But that's that statistic that we have. But even in like the first few days when only the deluxe edition early access expensive $90 US dollar edition was out, it reached a peak of like 32K. And I'm like, wow, that many people showed up for like the early access of this game. Like, I went into it knowing that like I don't know if this game will be worth that much money. And coming out and I'm playing through it through the early, like playing it in that early access up until now. And for me personally, I think it's been worth that money that I spent on it so far. Um, but I was interested to see like where it would like what numbers it would achieve in its first weekend. And as of the time of this recording, like it's like reached like almost 50K concurrent as its like 24-hour peak. So and that peak keeps on getting higher and higher on a
And I
daily
don't have hard
basis.
evidence to like back this up, but you kind of or you can at least presume that many of those people have no prior experience with the Inazuma 11.
Oh
This
yeah,
is not
for
Inazuma
yeah.
11 fans coming out of the woodwork. And level 5 for both of the releases this year, like obviously Inazuma 11 is a longer running franchise than Fantasy Life, which I believe just had the one title before
Yeah, it was like that in a mobile
Rubenskill's time.
game. But yeah, Isabella definitely
So
has a longer lineage.
but they've been able to like break out of like, oh, this is a game for Inazuma 11 fans, or this is a
Yeah.
game for Fantasy Life fans. They've been able to exceed that through it seems like polish, also just like content, just like
Yeah.
dumping everything in there, being able to put on their Steam tag 5,000 characters. I'm not saying people bought it because it had 5,000 characters, but they just made a game that people can play and kind of dive into for long periods of time. It's not just a shallow, this is a retelling of one anime series that you may or may not have seen. It's like, no, this is a fully featured thing with many different ways to play it. An original story, what they call the Chronicles mode, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Mikhail, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that when, like, I remember when Fantasy Life got delayed and they added more platforms, and there were a lot of discussion about why is level 5 getting greedy, like the game should have been cheaper. And then when it came out and people who actually played it, everyone was like, okay, this game is worth way more than what they're charging. And I mentioned this to Josh before that I think after both of us played Fantasy Life, like level 5 earned our trust to the point where like he bought the game a day before I did. Like I bought it on Steam to cover, and then I bought it on Switch because I wanted to play it there also. And I was like, yeah, even whatever I've played now, it's like, yeah, they deserve the money from my side at least. Like I'm good with it. I just want to see if it lives up to what I want from a football RPG, and like I want to see where the story goes, because like Josh has been saying a lot about it and posting like vague things what his friends have been saying, and even people who I know who've been playing it are just like, why you stop testing it and just go and play it. So yeah, I want to do that now.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, it's look, level 5 is not like they're not free from sin, obviously, right? There's definitely been like that like a 2023 article that showed, hey, they've been messing with some generative AI stable diffusion stuff on some of their marketing materials. That's been floated around again, and then there's definitely that instance of like, hey, these generative AI on that Yokai Watch spiritual successor, like the teaser video for it had the telltale marks of having generative AI used on it, and they are not free from like, hey, they are not like the angel, like an angel company in that regard, right? And I'm not saying that like they are saints, but I am willing to acknowledge that like based on the releases that they put out this year on them alone, they have an extreme level of polish and care to their presentations and their UI. That the way that they credit their staff is extremely well done. They actually like credit like, hey, play testers, and it's all very detailed. Um, and you can tell that like they are like they have many artists on board, many like staff, voice actors, programmers, individuals in network infrastructure behind the scenes that like they are not you know dictated and driven by like fully AI games. Like there are still many teams that internationally that like are involved in their projects, and I hope that they stray away from obviously from their generative AI endeavors in their future titles. Not to say that like Fantasy Life or Inazuma 11 are like they have any of that stuff in them. I have no clue to
The
be
truth
fair.
is that we don't know. Like
Yeah.
all we know is from like a thing literally 2 years ago where they were being pretty explicit that they do use AI in the development pipeline. Like even down to like an explicit example of a specific like file name of how they were using like ChatGPT to like, here's these rough details for a side quest in Deca Police, flesh this out for us. Which that is something that at least 2 years ago they were doing.
Yeah. So like jury's out on like how their future projects will shake out. All I can speak for is like what I see in front of me, but these products that I've played firsthand and what I've experienced. Um, so, but based on these two releases that they released this year, they are pretty fucking excellent, and they were well worth my time and money um, so far. And I'm very excited to see what this finale is in the story mode, because I'm like at the cusp of like starting the final match. And all I've heard from people who have like the few people who have witnessed it, one of my friends keeps on spamming cinema and keynote stickers in Discord on every little thing that happened while being very vague about it on that end. Mikhail, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so did you notice Yasunori Mitsuda was credited for original music?
Yeah, I like my friend was going through the credits. Like he's like, oh, like Mitsuda was like involved with this. So, I don't know how many tracks he did or how much of the BG OST he did, but I guess he was like pretty involved in this project.
Yeah, I was, because whatever I've heard so far has been really good. The opening theme was probably not done by him, because they usually get someone else to do the opening and ending stuff. But I don't know, so far it's really good, and it just got me to thinking, why the hell have they not released the Fantasy Life soundtrack? Like, what are they doing? Like Fantasy Life I, the original soundtrack exists. I had to import that from Amazon Japan years ago. One of the first things I imported, so that was funny. But yeah, it just got me to thinking, maybe with the DLC they'll like do a bundle or something. But yeah, like just Inazuma 11 music really good. The AI stuff, I saw that as well. James was posting about it on Blue Sky. I'm gonna hope that it not being on Steam means it's not mentioned, but then that Call of Duty stuff has happened as well, so who knows? But yeah, let's see what happens over there. But like you said, the credits go on for like what 40 minutes or something. Your friend told you, right?
Like it has a very very like okay, like story mode alone has like at least half an hour of credits. I don't know exactly how long it went for my friend because I went to sleep and while he was still going through the credits. This is only for story mode alone. There's still a credits set. Like Chronicle mode, from what I understand, will have its own set of unique credits as well. So this game might have like at least 2 credit sequences for 2 different modes that are both maybe at least half an hour long to at least start getting a sense of like how long this game has been in development and how many people were involved in the development of this super game, we'll say. And I don't know if there's any other credit sequences aside from those modes. There could very well be another credit sequence for all I know in another mode. But yeah, and for people who like veterans of the Inazuma 11 series, from what I understand, a good chunk of the tracks in Victory Road also have like remixes of old Inazuma 11 tracks, like maybe like rearranged because like they're on more powerful hardware now to reproduce them, and all of them also have a unique remix or rearrangement for like when you're in that slow-mo focus battle mode. So like the actual track will warp and change because they have a unique arrangement when they're in the focus battle mode um, version of them, and that just changes in real time. I'm like, I never even thought about that, but you're so fucking right. That's insane. There are many things about this like project that like level 5 poured into that like it's like no other company really does this. They developed their own Google player search engine for it, for this title alone, for all those characters, and they have like an in-game 3D modeler preview of those models that you can spin around. They created their own like Pokemon bank equivalent for like a player bank for a potential sequel that I, I don't know. I don't think it's in development or started development, but like they said, like if we were to ever make a sequel to this game, we've already built the infrastructure of this player bank to like move your characters forward into that hypothetical sequel. You also like a small thing that you mentioned the other day, Mikhail, is like the Inazuma 11 like key visual is different on depending on the platform. So there's like 4 different key visuals of this game, unique to each platform, the way that it's presented. And I'm like, and there's probably like half a dozen of other stuff that I'm not remembering off the top of my head. That's just like level 5, just like they are crazy when it comes to the way that they market and the system infrastructure that they build around their modern games of like how you interact with them. Like I remember Fantasy Life I earlier this year when I went to visit their website, they had different art illustrations from a whole like handful of like guest artists on that site, and they also developed like e-pamphlets that are all have different designs and different texts as like if you were like it's like a tourist guide of the different modes of Fantasy Life I that was just like hidden there in that site. I'm like, I don't know why you're doing this, but like it's awesome. Like I appreciate it because I found it, but I don't know why you would do this, but it's awesome.
And that in context with using potentially, AI for in the development phase, kind of a far cry from using, stolen Ghibli art style in a achievement perk menu.
Look, I'd rather take this
there's scales to
generative
this stuff.
AI than the NFT shit that they tried to go for back in the day.
Pick either. Like it's not even either. I prefer this over. It's like I prefer none of it in general overall.
Right.
It's just like
Yeah.
just all we can hopefully do is like one like show support for like the releases, and 2 like communicate directly to their CEO. Like Akihiro is actually pretty active on social media, so I'm sure people have already like tried to communicate like, hey, we don't really like hopefully you're straying away more from this stuff. Hopefully, do this because he's actually pretty active on social media and will constantly post about like upcoming like updates that they have for their titles or what they're planning in the future. And I'm sure several others have already like said like, hey, that's cool, that's happening. Please don't like go into this territory moving forward.
Yeah, I think he's actually posted about some updates before the official website and account post about them as well. So like I had to like enable notifications for him so I don't miss like news and stuff. But yeah, you just brought up the thing about them doing different key art for each platform. They also have so because I did the cross save, right? Like when they shipped the game, because there was no deluxe access early unlock on Switch and Switch 2, they couldn't have known this was gonna happen. So when the game unlocked on Switch and Switch 2, people who played it on other platforms and bought it here weren't able to get their save file over because of some overwrite error. And because of how delayed Nintendo certification is for updates, Level 5 had to actually like push out hotfixes on Steam, PlayStation, and Xbox to make the save work with the Switch version. And that happened like on November 14th during the middle of the day. And then I was able to get my save over, and I noticed this thing that on the save file they've marked what platforms you have your save on. So like right now I have like a red color dot and a like the Steam blue color dot with space in the middle for 2 dots. So if I get the Xbox and PS5 version, it'll be like the Thanos gauntlet I'll have finished, and then I can like just snap everything out of existence. But yeah, like it's just and that's the thing, right? With the deluxe edition, you get like a boosted like gacha rate, and if you have all of them, you get a boost for everyone for like every 2 weeks or something. Like they really turn things to 11, like to put it bluntly and kind of cliched, because you have cross save, you have cross platform play, you have shipping on all platforms day one simultaneously worldwide, you have an English dub, not that great or whatever, but it's there as an option right now. It's just like wild that they pulled this off after all this time.
Yeah, hey, remember when this game was like slated to come to iOS and Android at some
Yeah,
point?
PS4, was it PS4, 3DS, iOS and Android, or was it PS4, Switch, iOS and Android? But
All
that
I
was when it
remember
was
that
called
at some point it was
Airs.
supposed to come to mobile, and then they just
Yeah,
got cited the
yeah.
accident. I'm just thinking, it's like I don't know how you would like ship this game to mobile and how that would work and what the file size would be on mobile.
I mean, that
Uh,
Where Winds Meet is supposed to be on iOS and Android, and that game is apparently 200 GB on like PC, isn't it?
what the fuck?
Okay,
Oh,
okay. To be clear about that, there's two separate PC versions of that. There's one that's like the ultimate version, which has like higher quality assets, and then there's another version, which, as far as I can tell, is more parity with like the mobile version, meant for like more like lower end systems.
okay. What do you know the file size of that one?
I do
Um,
not
I'm
know off
looking
the
at
top of my head.
I'm looking at
okay.
some information which people have posted about how on iOS, Android, and on iPad, there's like different file sizes based on what device you're playing on. So maybe it detects what you're playing on and it downloads accordingly. Because on the App Store, you can't ship more than 4 GB or 10 GB in your initial install. Then you have to download everything separately. It's listed as 3.9 GB for the initial install. I'm trying to see if the App Store has listed the full size. It's not listed it right now.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
wouldn't.
that's the big bypass that
Yeah.
people figured out like many years ago. It's like,
Like
okay, you have
over
those
a
like
decade ago at this point. So
yeah, where like the only thing you're downloading from that store is the launcher, and then when you boot up the launcher, that's when they're actually communicating with their servers to download God knows how many gigabytes, because that has no oversight. It's all dictated by. It's like one of those. At some point, it was probably supposed to like never work like this, but then everyone was like, "Fuck it, it's too late."
it's
Who
like they
cares?
can't.
No,
It's not,
it is.
and it's not like there's any better options. So like
Yeah,
Apple, I'm sure, like Apple and Google, I'm sure are like, well, we can't really do anything about this because that'll just break a bunch of apps, and there's like no solution. So
right.
yeah,
It was only
Yeah,
going to
because
turn
I'm
out like
looking at my
this.
phone right now and I have like Genshin is 40, Honkai is 36, Resident Evil 4 Remake is like 32, Wuthering Waves is 32, Death Stranding is 22, but this is after it's deleted some of the stuff because I remember it being above 40 GB before. So, like, yeah, all these games were like they just download like 600 MB or a GB from the App Store, and then everything's like Warframe is like 28 GB now. So, like, yeah, it just keeps adding up.
File sizes. We love them. But yeah, I'm gonna continue exploring Inazuma Alone. There's still a lot of game for me left to get through, and I'll report back, whenever I feel it's relevant, or maybe you'll hear from it at the end of the year. Who knows? Um, Anything else you want to add, Mikhail?
I mean, yeah, I'll bring up my 2 articles I did.
Yeah,
So
of course.
I did a PC port impressions thing. Like, obviously you played it before I did. Then I was testing it on like just PC in general, because this game actually has ultra wide support, which works really well. And they even added it for like in-engine cutscenes. Pretty impressive that they really like they went above and beyond for this in more ways than they should have. So the PC port is really good in everything, I'd say, except for the easy anti-cheat thing. I don't know if you've run into this, but it takes way too long to start up because of that nonsense compared to the console version.
Oh yeah, that's just anything with easy anti-cheat, especially because they have to also communicate with Epic's online service to support their cross-play, cross-save
Yeah.
system as
So
well.
that's probably my only complaint with the PC version, because it has everything else I want. You can change the button prompts, because any game which has QTEs, if I'm playing like, obviously this is a exception because it has cross progression, but if I'm playing a game on Xbox and Switch at the same time, the ABXY throws me off every single time. So now I just set the PC version to show me PlayStation button prompts so I don't get confused.
Yeah.
And I'll deal with it if I get the Xbox version. I'll deal with the confusion later. But PC port is really really good. You can even like get to 90 FPS on Steam Deck with HDR. So it's like I'm very impressed with that, enjoying that. I did a switch to a tech article which literally went up like an hour before the podcast, because I was doing that most of today as of its recording. The Switch One version is unfortunately quite bad. Like, not just because 30 FPS and like lower resolution, it's just like a lot of freezing randomly while exploring and like hitching and stuff. And the football doesn't feel as good because it's like 30 FPS with long loading as well. So I think right now I actually can't recommend people try it on Switch One. Like, if you only have that, you might want to wait for a patch or two, because level 5 is good with that. When they ship Fantasy Life, they've improved the Switch and Switch 2 versions quite a bit post launch. I hope they do that with Inazuma 11. But the Switch 2 version is fantastic handheld. They did some smart cuts to like reduce the LOD and some textures and shadows, but it looks nice and crisp. They I don't know if you remember, but they posted the resolution and frame rate targets, and they said 4K 60 for Switch 2. It's not 4K 60
Oh
except for the
yeah,
UI. So yeah.
yeah. Like I even said as much when I talked about my impressions of the demo, where
Yeah,
it's
the
like,
TGS thing. Yeah. You said that. I forgot about that. But yeah, it's not 4K 60. It looks really good handheld. Docked is pretty comparable to, I'd say, the 1440 PC version with some cuts, but it's not 4K. So like, this is another lesson for anyone. Like, don't trust what publishers say as like the final. It's just like a target. So yeah, that I did those two. I'm gonna now properly play it to like do the actual review. So yeah.
yeah,
So
don't
yeah,
trust when companies tell you that they're targeting 4K. That might be relevant very soon.
right. So, but yeah, if you have a Steam Deck, like you said, runs very very well on Steam Deck with pretty respectable settings, and I'm sure, like in the not so far future, it might be running pretty well on a Steam machine, let's say.
Yep.
Thank you, Josh and Mikhail, for going into detail on the successful launch of Inazuma 11 Victory Road. Word of mouth has been really good. Your guys' kind of impressions have been really positive, so really cool to see kind of another win for level 5, 2 in 1 year. We would have not have predicted that a couple years ago. And then, yeah, we do have the 2 features up from Mikhail about its performance on Switch 2, Switch 1, Steam Deck, PC. Before we go into some of the other news headlines, a few of which we've been sort of teasing here, there are a couple other features up on the site, Mikhail, a few other games, recent releases that you've been able to look at performance. And one of them is going to tie into one of the announcements we'll talk into from the state of play. Octopath Traveler 0, releasing, of course, next month in December, does have a demo available now. And with that, you took the opportunity to look at its performance. So it was Octopath Traveler 0 and a few other games that you kind of looked at. Do you want to just quickly shout out a few of the things that
Yeah.
you put up on the site?
Yeah, so for Octopath, I didn't actually know there was a demo coming out. I don't think any of us did until it actually dropped an hour before the previews went up. Honestly, kind of annoying, but whatever. So yeah, I had access to the. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say some inside baseball. I saw that Mikhail already had his port impressions in the CMS, so I was like, okay, I'll wait until after the state of play to like write up some quick impressions, and then the demo dropped, and I was like, well, I guess I just won't now, because there's not really a point, because people have been playing it for a couple of hours, and we already have the port impression that's going up. It's like
yeah, that's the thing, right? Like the preview was pretty restrictive to the point where like it's like, what is the point? Just play the demo. So, but yeah, I just the Switch 2 version is a bit disappointing. Basically, just the TLDR on that. It's kind of disappointing going into that after what they did with Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remake. I don't think it's gonna get fixed because usually when you have a game ready like a month before launch, nothing's really gonna change over there. But yeah, I'd say download the demo and see how it runs, and if you're okay with that, you should be fine. But I'm quite disappointed with the Switch 2 version and the game in general. Like it has some really ugly textures. Like I was joking with a friend of mine saying that it's like Square Enix took the parts I don't like in Rebirth's open world and made an HD 2D version of it with like these ugly textures as a joke. But yeah, I just it feels a little like disjointed, which is not something I expect from Octopath 1 and 2. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that. James, you were talking about how you prefer playing this on a handheld because of that as well, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So when we got the review code in, because we did, it is full review code, even though we were constrained, like constraints of the demo to talk about it. But when I got my review code, I did one thing. I installed it on my laptop, I booted it up, and it connected to a 1440p monitor. I boot it up on the monitor. I look at it for like a minute, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. I shut down the game on my laptop, installed on my MSI Claw, and immediately it's like, okay, so I can tell that the assets are still not great, but on a handheld, it's not actively jarring, and I can ignore it most of the time if I even notice it as much. This is one of those games where it sucks that the Switch 2 version apparently isn't very good, because I would never play this like on a monitor or like on a console like hooked up to a TV. I just do not think that the assets are anywhere near acceptable enough for that to be an enjoyable experience.
And the problem with the Switch 2 version on top of that is you have all of this and it's sub-native and there's like performance issues on top. So I don't know, the Switch 2 version may be like a last minute thing they've added, but it's just like not great. I don't know how the Switch 1 version is because like I didn't know the demo was coming out. I've not downloaded that, but I had access to the Steam and the Switch 2 version. Steam version is like perfect on Steam Deck, and like you said, you tested it on your handheld. It's just like no complaints over there. But yeah, I just recommend trying out the demo.
Did you run
Besides
into,
Octopath,
have you
sorry,
run
go
into
ahead.
the issue? I'm not sure if it's just like an Intel thing, but there's one specific area where the rest of the game, if I have it at max TDP, it's basically a locked 120 FPS. But there's one area where regardless of the TDP, it drops to like 50 FPS. But it's the only area that does it.
Is that the one before the cave when you're in like this hybrid between the snow and the other village area?
Maybe, but so you've run into it?
I just noticed over there I wasn't able to get like a locked 90 FPS at max settings on Steam Deck. It dropped, but then it was only there. So that's why I just thought maybe it's there. Maybe it's that part.
I want to say it's like definitely like a foresty zone. I think it is within the confines of the preview, so I could probably find it and just mention it. But it's like that's the only area where I've had any performance issues, and even then, it still is perfectly playable. And it's the only area that I found that for whatever reason has that performance like penalty. So it's like it doesn't. It's worth mentioning. It's just not really a big issue. But it's like, that's weird.
Yeah. So besides Octopath, that was like one really busy day. It was like Octopath Zero preview embargo in the morning for me, and then in the afternoon was the Atelier Ryza Secret Trilogy Deluxe Pack, and we got code for this quite early, thankfully. And I say thankfully because even though it's like an enhanced like port with DLC and some new content, I had a lot planned for it. And I remember sending Adam a DM saying, I wonder if I'm just gonna do my usual Atelier thing where I like write an article on the PC port and then I do a separate thing on the console version. And then I said, should I just go full stupid and do everything together? And that's what I did. So I tested the three Atelier, the DX versions, the Switch versions on Switch 2, the Switch 2 versions, PS4, PS4 on PS5, PS5, PC. And if that wasn't enough, I also like retested the original games. So like I had like 30 different Atelier Ryza games across platforms installed for this thing. It was like a massive undertaking, but yeah, it's uh in the end, like Switch 2 version is pretty good overall. PS5 version, I'd say PS5 and high-end PC where you can downsample from 4K or above because the game has some weird anti-aliasing issues. But yeah, PS5 and PC high-end really good. Switch to 30 FPS. I know some people were expecting 60 or hoping for it, but given how demanding these games are on PC and they can barely go above 30 with good visuals on Steam Deck, I did not expect that. So I recommend reading that because I like push the limits of the table structure which we have on the CMS also with so many variables. But yeah, give it a read if you're not sure where to buy the Ryza games.
Oh
It has
yeah,
everything.
100% give it a read. I'm just now like actually like scrolling through it because I've been busy the last couple of days, and it's like, holy shit, dude.
Yeah, so like
Legend.
literally full stupid. I was like, I have to do it. If I said I'll do it. So yeah, like I posted a screenshot of like 9 Atelier Ryza games on the Switch too also. Yeah, that was really funny.
You're
So yeah,
insane,
like
Mikhail.
How
We
long
love
did
you.
it
that's a
take
We
to put
tangent.
love you,
together?
but man.
Sorry, what?
How long did it take to put all that together? Because I look at a table, it's got like 13 rows, but I'm like, each row, you're measuring time to go from the dashboard to the title, and like you're combining 4 screenshots into a single image to compare like anti-aliasing. It's a lot of work like behind it.
Yeah,
You-
it's definitely the most effort that's gone into a single article I've done, and it happened for a game which is probably not high priority for most people. But yeah, because I do this for Atelier, I was like, this is going to be the funniest and stupidest thing ever. So like, let's do it.
He did it
So
because it
yeah,
was
like
funny. That's the real answer. And
yeah, so
I commend that.
so yeah, like in the end, that's the Atelier stuff done. I also want to like update this how to get into the Atelier series thing, which I have because I haven't updated that in a while, and this is like a good time to do it. So I'll do that. And the other thing I did was after Atelier, the same day was the Yakuza Kiwami 1 and 2 Switch 2 reviews. I didn't do a full review for Kiwami 1 because like I did the review for the Switch 1 version last year, so I just like had 2 paragraphs on that. But Kiwami 1 you can upgrade for like $10 if you bought the Switch version last year. But funnily enough, and like like I actually face palmed when I read this. If people bought that overpriced limited run game Switch physical, you can't get the discounted upgrade for that. So like good job,
Gosh.
folks.
Sheesh.
Yeah. So yeah, like Yakuza Kiwami 1 on Switch 2 is 60 FPS. It has the licensed music which they added last year. So it's just a really good way to play the game right now, and your save carries over. The main thing which I was interested in was Kiwami 2, and not just because it's like a game built for PS4 and scaled up, but this was the first Dragon Engine game which they ported to PC, and it had quite a few tech issues on PC. Not only was it like super demanding, but some combos and skills break above 30 FPS where like enemies can evade your combos if you're playing at 60, but if you play at 30, you can actually hit them. There are like random mini game issues if you like play above 60 FPS. So this is something which was never fixed on PC. Like you have to use mods to like limit the frame rate in some mini games and stuff. So and if like listeners aren't aware, Yakuza Kiwami 2 was ported to PC before 6. 6 got ported later, while on PS5, 6 was the first game on this engine. So this was literally like the first game they ported from this engine to PC. Still a bit rough compared to all the other games because now the series is like, it gets fantastic PC ports, but Kiwami 2 was not great. And uh, on December 8th, they are patching Kiwami 1 and 2 on PC with additional languages. They haven't said anything else, but I'm hoping the licensed music from Kiwami 1 gets patched in, and I'm hoping some of these tech issues get fixed on PC for Kiwami 2, but they haven't said anything about that. So as for Kiwami 2 on Switch 2, it looks really nice. They're definitely using some sort of upscaling. I can't tell if it's DLSS or not because like the Switch 2 is the only device I own which has DLSS, so I don't have experience with it outside that. It looks very nice. I'd say it's a better visual experience than playing the PS4 and Xbox One versions, but it has some frame rate issues which those versions don't have, like when you're running around the city and just like when you're running around Sotenbori, both Kamurocho. If there are a lot of NPCs, it has like some random slowdown. Not the end of the world, I'd say, because in general everything else is good. But I don't know why they're doing this. This happened with Persona 3 Reload also. Like, do they not play the games and see how it randomly like it freezes and hitches when you're moving around? I'd say like that's a bigger visual issue than just frame rate drop. So I don't know why Sega's just shipping these games like that. They even not an RPG but 2 Point Museum from them which also shipped. That's a game which runs at 90 FPS on Steam Deck and it struggles to hit 30 FPS on Switch too. So like I'm just a bit confused at some of the ports they're releasing. So yeah, in the end, I love Kiwami 2 a lot. Like I've played it multiple times. I own multiple versions of it. I even enjoy the music they replaced Crazy Ken Band with, even though Crazy Ken Band is legendary. They should have give you an option to toggle that on. But yeah, I was happy to revisit it, and I probably will revisit it again next month because they're doing native PS5 and Series X versions as well. So maybe. But yeah, Kiwami 2 review for Switch 2 is on the site with I did some comparisons with Kiwami 1, how that's upgraded over Switch 1 and stuff. It's all there in the review. So, busy week.
Sorry for kind of doubling back to the Atelier stuff really quick, but I
Go
was
ahead.
curious because I noticed in your tables that very noticeably the new versions of these games, for whatever reason, on Windows are taking way longer to load. That's not a problem on Steam Deck, but on Windows, it's like taking like almost 3 times the amount of time to load.
So
And
so that was just the Atelier Ryza one specifically. I don't know what was causing that, and it just happened. Like I did whatever I could to retest this. I installed it. I did the view
It's not
integrity
just
of the
you. It's not just
files.
you, 'cause I saw that and my first thought was, "Let me go to the Steam reviews." I'm sure there's not many, but, like, a lot of them are talking about, "Wait a second, why is it taking so much longer to load on Windows?" Because like, somebody even said on Steam Deck, I didn't notice anything, but on my
Yeah.
desktop with a PCIe Gen 5 NVMe, it's taking forever to load. What the hell?
Yeah, I'm
That's
not sure what
weird.
happened over there, but like this is one of those things where if I had like another Windows device, I could actually try it out. But this is like official Windows 11 unmodded or anything. So if it's happening here, it's gonna happen to everyone, and that's kind of what happened. So that's why I retested that, and like downloading this stuff on the ROG Ally is a pain because for some reason that just does not download at full bandwidth for me. So, but yeah, when I see something so off and like so out of the like unexpected, I will retest it like 3 times and re-download if needed. So I just don't know what they probably will
I'm not
fix it because most of the
yeah.
complaints are just the load times.
Yeah, I'm not rebuying these, especially not right now, but I'm really, like, curious. Like, if I had access to these, I would definitely do some of my own testing because I am curious, on because I know that, like, Atelier in the past has had weird issues with, non-NVIDIA hardware. Like, I know that, for the longest time, like, Ryza 1 and, well, Koei Tecmo in general, there was, like, certain drivers where, like, Dragon Quest Builders 2 would just not work on, like, AMD hardware, so you had to use, like, an older driver that was, like, over a year out of date, and So I'm very curious how this would run on the Intel handheld, if it even runs. I'd assume it would because they had XeSS support in Yumi, and so obviously they test on it. But I'm very curious, genuinely.
But yeah, this has another issue with like I was watching Austin SV's stream where he was playing, and he noticed the same thing I did, where the anti-aliasing is just bad on PC in this. So like on Steam Deck, what I did is I ran it at 768p and downsampled to 720 for the first two games, but Ryza 3 is too demanding, so I didn't bother there. But he was running it at 4K and playing it to just get better, like because TAA seemed to not be working for him or something. So I don't know, but yeah, I feel like if you're reselling a game from like, wasn't Ryza 3 like 2 years ago? Or was it like one and a half year ago?
It was 2.5 years ago. It was like March 2023.
Yeah, so if you're like reselling the same game again, like at least make sure it like matches the performance you got before and visual. So I don't know, but yeah, like that's just Ryza. Hopefully they fix this, and hopefully you get to try it on your handheld, because I'm curious how it runs there with XeSS, where you can do all that driver level forcing and stuff.
Does it have XeSS or does it have FSR?
Oh no, it's the exact same as the previous versions of the games. There's no change.
So it doesn't have FSR 2 or anything like that.
I think Yumiya was the first game that added like upscaling tech.
Okay, then it can
for the Atelier.
Then I can't add in XeSS because it has to have FSR or DLSS to use as a base.
Oh, because of the vectors. Okay, it has to pull from the same vector. Okay, yeah, I see.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the main reason that it works is because NVIDIA and Intel have a joint project called Streamline, which means that they've standardized how the vector inputs are read, which means that if a game uses DLSS, it should, like 99.9% of the time, just work if you override XeSS on top of it.
So long story short, Ryza 1 takes a long time to load, and we don't know why.
Yeah.
No, it is cool to hear some of the like the nitty gritty in terms of like the technical support, where the games were when they first released versus where they are now, especially on a re-release. It's supposed to be like ostensibly the definitive versions of the game. But yeah, if you're gonna look up any of Mikhail's work over the week, even if you're like only tangentially related or interested in the Ryza coverage, just take a look at his Ryza Trilogy Deluxe Pack, which is the best version because it is super detailed, and a lot of work went into it for testing basically all possible combinations of how that game is running. And then, if you click the features or the articles tab, you should be able to see, Yakuza Kiwami 2, Octopath Traveler, and Inazuma 11. All of those will all be up on the site. With that, we'll go into news. We've already kind of touched on a couple of the things. I'll just, check off Octopath Traveler 0 has a prologue demo announced at the State of Play. And we did, briefly mention for 2026, Valve has announced a bunch of new Steam hardware. There's been a lot of scuttlebutt over the last while about Steam machines, VR headsets, everything. So this is not something that is explicitly RPG related, but it is something that I know a lot of us have Steam Decks. A lot of us have expressed interest in potentially what a Steam machine could be. VR, Steam has still been one of the lingering champions of VR capabilities ever since the Valve Index, like 5 years ago. I guess maybe I'll hand this off to James to cover what Valve has announced for 2026.
Oh yeah, I'm going to start with the one
James like, hell yeah.
I'm sure that the least amount of people in this call, aka only me, are interested in. The Steam Frame, the new headset, really cool tech.
I'm interested in it. I depending on the price, I might get one.
They did say it's going to be less expensive than the Index, so I'm assuming it's probably going to be $800 for the base model and $1,000 for the higher storage size model.
Oh yeah, just one quick note. Out of everything they've announced, there have been no official prices announced, so everything is speculation.
Yeah, no release dates. They said like quarter 1 2026 for all of these, but no specific date, and no, like I said, no pricing. Just they just showed off like they showed off what these look like and the specs, but that's it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna buy one for VR. Am I silly thinking that way?
No. I mean, I feel like for most people that are actually interested in VR and don't want to give Meta money, which is very much a big contingent of people I know that are interested in VR, they would never give them money, which means that up until now, it's like, well, I'm not getting into VR because otherwise you have these PC only headsets that are big, bulky, or if not big and bulky, they are like over $1,000, and you need like a whole like room scale setup for it.
Okay, James. So this is not Valve's first VR headset. They've had the Valve Index
No,
before.
it's
So
the third VR
third one,
headset
yeah. So
because
kind of
they
run down. Yeah, you're gonna get to it. Just like run down, like their history with VR and what does Steam Frame bring to the table that would potentially make it more appealing than their previous offerings.
Okay, so the first two VR headsets that Valve did were, the first one was the HTC Vive, which was a joint collaboration between HTC and Valve. That's the first headset that used their room scale technology, using the little like motors that you hook up into places, and the headset scans for, well, the trackers scan the headset in order to be able to track like an entire room instead of like extrapolating. And at the time, the HTC Vive was the best headset you could buy because wireless VR wasn't a thing yet, all that sort of thing. The Index was Valve's follow-up to the Vive. There was a separate Vive Pro, but that was just HTC. The Valve Index was entirely Valve. They didn't partner with anyone else, and it had the Gen 2 of their tracking, I forget the exact name, but you know what I mean. The
Yeah,
things
the
that
room scale type of stuff
yeah,
that they did.
yeah. Generation 2 of that, and then they also had the Index Knuckles controllers, so they were like explicit controllers because the HTC Vive's controllers were bad. They were just bad. They were not good. And the Index came out in 2020, so it's been 5.5 years since that dropped. And now we have the Steam Frame announced, which is entirely different from any of the other headsets they've done before. It's very much along the same lines of the Quest 2 Pro or the Quest Pro, where it's using these pancake lenses, which if you're not into VR, you don't know what the hell that means. Most VR headsets that you've used, if you've used a PSVR 1 or a PSVR 2, they use these lenses called Fresnel lenses, which are good for keeping brightness like steady between the panel behind like the actual like lenses. But the problem with them is that they have a very, very like specific sweet spot, which means that you need to really know your IPD, like the distance between your eyes, to make sure that those are set up correctly so that you don't get headaches if you're especially sensitive to like the images not being like completely one-to-one. Pancake lenses are a different technology which have the trade-off of the brightness being harder to achieve, especially for OLED. We'll get to that later. But because of the way that they're handled, the sweet spot is way, way less tight, and there's a lot less fringing along the edges of each lens. That's not going to matter to most people. If you've used a Quest 3, that's a pancake lens. If you've used a Quest 2 or a Quest 1, that's a Fresnel one. These are using pancake lenses. They're LCDs only for two reasons. One, because of the brightness problem. Two, because they did want to keep down on cost at least a little bit. But one thing that they do have, which is very similar to Meta's Quest Pro headset, is it actually has eye tracking. And eye tracking for VR is very important, especially on a device that can be used standalone, because foveated rendering is a way that a lot of VR games take advantage of the fact, because each of these lenses are basically 4K lenses. Like this, like if you account for the resolution of both of these lenses, the left lens and the right lens put together, this is outputting around a 4K resolution. It's not 1-to-1, but it's like a similar pixel range. So obviously a lot of PCs, and especially like for Meta, which has similar lenses, they're not going to be able to render 4K natively. So instead they use foveated rendering, which means that anything that's not directly within your line of sight is going to render at a lower resolution, which can be distracting because you can notice that even if it's just in your periphery vision. Eye tracking, though, makes it so that the portions of the screen that are being rendered at a higher resolution is based off of where you're looking. So even though it's rendering everything else at a much lower resolution, you can't notice because the moment you look over, it's going to change where it's rendered. And good eye tracking makes it so that you don't even notice the difference. And from everyone that's tested this out, the Steam frame absolutely. They even had this interesting demo where they modified Half-Life Alyx with the eye tracking to make it, instead of it foveated rendering the display, they only render stuff that's directly being looked at, and people couldn't even tell the difference. So that's very cool. One thing that isn't new technology, which is interesting because I haven't actually seen anyone mention that this isn't new. They're also using the eye tracking for foveated streaming and encoding, which is important for a wireless headset where if you're connecting it to your PC, obviously Wi-Fi has a much lower bandwidth than like a DisplayPort cable. So it's very hard to get similar like visual quality to like a native image, and especially if you want to account for encoding times. That's the main problem with like the Quest headsets, is that you can get virtual desktop and you can get like a 200 megabit per second or 400 megabit per second bit rate going for encoding, and most of the time it'll look pretty damn good, but there are obvious downsides, whether that's in terms of the encoding like latency, or just especially in certain scenes, you can absolutely notice the fact that you're essentially streaming a very, very high bitrate YouTube video to your headset. So what they do with foveated encoding is that they're using the eye tracking and they're telling the encoding PC on Steam's end, okay, since Steam is handling coding for these streams, focus mostly on the sections of the video that the user is looking at. So that way you save on bandwidth, like you don't have to stream at as high of a resolution, but also because it's only like 10% of each lens that's being rendered at the full fidelity, you can, like, even if you have like half the bit rate, say, of a Quest 3 headset using AV1 encoding, it's going to look a lot better and have a lot less latency because it's taking less time to encode because it's a lower resolution feed, but it's going to look better because of the eye tracking, making sure that it knows where to focus that encoding on. That's not new though. Steam Link on Meta headsets have had that, but it was exclusive to the Quest Pro, which had eye tracking, so most people didn't even know that's been in Steam VR over Steam Link for years now. Like, I remember when I first got my headset, like my Quest 3 last year, I even noticed that was an option, but I didn't have a Quest Pro, I had a Quest 3, so I wasn't able to test it, but you could tell that that was already enabled and something you could do back then. But this is the first headset that will be at a more like reasonable price point that'll actually be able to showcase
It might like
that.
penetrate the mainstream consciousness
Yes.
with
Yeah.
that tech. Yeah, that's really interesting. That like they really are trying to leverage eye tracking tech to like bolster these technologies in the way that these stream
Yeah. And the other thing they're
the
doing,
output to people.
and the last thing they're doing that's noteworthy, besides the fact it's standalone, well, two things that are noteworthy. It comes with a USB 3.0 dongle that you can actually insert in your PC that, remember Nintendo Wi-Fi connection?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yep.
You remember how that was used so that if you didn't have a Wi-Fi access point, you could connect to Wi-Fi on your Wii or DS? They basically made a very souped up version of that specifically for the VR headset using a 6 gigahertz band that isn't very common these days still. That way there's as little like noise to make the stream as consistent as it can be. So that's really neat. And so between that and all the foveated encoding stuff, they're saying that the latency should be like way lower than other wireless headsets, and it should look a lot better because for foveated rendering with eye tracking, a game has to be developed with that as part of like the tool set. It has to be explicitly supported. But for foveated streaming, that's all on Steam's end. A game doesn't have to support it. It's just something being done on the software side. So every game is going to be able to take advantage of that, which is why I'm super excited for it, because I actually use my Quest 3 for PC VR primarily. And having a headset that will be a higher fidelity at a lower bit rate with lower latency Oh, I'm all about that. I am super high. Super high.
Very interested to see like what the reviews will look like when this comes out. So I think
Oh,
the main appeal for me. I'll go for it. Yeah, go for it.
It's also a standalone headset. I feel like I'm kind
Yeah.
of downplaying that. But the most interesting thing about that is that it's running SteamOS. It's an ARM chip. It's a Snapdragon, which means that not only is Valve got Proton working to translate games from Windows to Linux, which has pretty consistent compatibilities these days outside of anti-cheats, but they now have a separate compatibility layer to enable ARM platforms to like that's officially supported to play Steam games on ARM devices. In a couple of years, could we see a Steam Deck that's ARM based? Because that certainly seems like something they're hedging their bets on being a possibility. That's really cool.
Very interesting development if that happens. Yeah. Yeah, but like you said, the thing that really appeals to me about this is one, there's no wire fuss with it. It's all wireless, just with that dongle. Two, it's basically like you said, it's basically just if you wanted to use this like a PC, from what I understanding, like you can essentially like access like I guess a Steam desktop like esque like platform on this as well. Both that and the Steam machine that they unveiled. So if you wanted to use it like that, and it is not just for VR games. I understand like this can play non VR games as well.
Yeah, and that's one thing that they've done with their redesigned controllers. They're very similar to the touch controllers that Meta has, but they have a slightly different layout. There's a D-pad. There's all four like face buttons on the right controller. There is a trigger and a bumper on both. So they really redesigned them to accommodate both VR games, but also if you want to just use it to like say stream games from your desktop into the headset to play it on a virtual big screen, or if you want to play something like they showed this a lot, like Hades 2, you can just play it directly on the headset. And I imagine like other games will work just as fine, like stuff like Balatro and like all sorts of more lower end stuff, which I feel like that's probably not what people are going to be using it for mostly, but it is a good way of kind of selling it to folks that maybe aren't sure how they feel about it. It's like, hey, you can also use this as basically a virtual big screen for your Steam games if you want to do that too, which is.
I have a question for you because I know you're very knowledgeable about this. Is that because of it's using obviously the Proton layer Linux format that's been used on Steam Deck as well? What is the likelihood that that people will find a way or develop something for this Steam frame to allow playability of games that maybe are exclusive to like other platforms? Would there be
They have native APK support.
Okay. So that's possible then for like if you wanted to play something that's like locked.
Yeah, for Oculus stuff, it might be a little bit trickier, but for anything that's already been like ported to work on like a Pico headset, I know people have gotten like say the new Batman Arkham game working on other headsets. So I would imagine because of that, you should be able to unofficially
Mhm.
buy it. We're not advocating certain things here, but at least buy the game. You should be able to play stuff like that on this headset, assuming that the community has already worked it out for like Pico.
Not that I would ever do it, of course, but like but for the people who want to, let's say, play that new Batman Arkham game and Deadpool, and I don't know where that what was that other one, that Valhalla, Asgard's Wrath? Like I don't know which store that's in, if that's locked, I don't know.
Yeah, if it's a VR game that's exclusive to a platform in this day and age, it's exclusive to Meta's platform.
Okay.
But yeah, so if those games have already been ported to like unofficially to other platforms, I don't see any reason why this would not also be able to handle those games. And especially homebrew stuff for a Quest should just work. Like there's homebrew VR versions of Half-Life 1 that are designed to run directly on a Quest headset, and you should be able to just get those working like with no fuss on this. So
Interesting. Okay. And then moving on, I guess before we get to the other big hardware, I also want to give a little bit of time to that Steam controller, new Steam controller that they unveiled. That I everyone that I've talked to said I'm at least buying one of these. A friend of mine is like, I'm getting two right away when they go for
I mean,
pre-order.
I like before it was announced, I just like told James you need to order like 2 or 3 for me, like or something
Yeah,
like that. Like
yeah.
I
I have a friend who's
absolutely.
I have a friend who's like a big fan and advocate of the original Steam controller, the one with the 2 trackpads. He
Yeah,
loved that
fun
thing.
fact,
He really likes this design.
Fun fact, when I reviewed the PC version of Dragon Quest Builders 2, I played the entirety of it on my original Steam controller. So it's
Nice.
like I've been waiting for a follow-up to this thing. It's not like one-to-one, obviously, but like the moment I got that Steam Deck, I was like, just make a controller that has all of these inputs, and they fucking did finally.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna get one for my Steam Deck because I'm using it more now, and that'd be cool to just have like just full like get the whole functionality of Steam Deck just in a controller. Like no fuss about it.
I mean, I'm using it to play Europa Universalis 5 literally, like, not right now while we're recording, but like I used it earlier today. Like I was playing the Steam Deck and I'm using the trackpads with radial menus and stuff. Shit is powerful, man. Like the community is like nuts with this stuff. Like they work fast.
Yeah. What's up, Brian?
I was just gonna say I'm really excited for this controller because I'm pretty basic. I've used like the Xbox controllers, but despite liking their heft compared to like the Nintendo Switch controllers, I always have problems with like the shoulder buttons or the A button like eventually becoming less responsive. So any new, Valve, and this isn't their first time throwing their hat in the ring, but I'm excited just to find an alternative that works for me. So I'm really curious about trying one of these out. I never tried the original controller because I think it only had the trackpad. It didn't. Let me remind.
No,
I'm gonna pull up an image to remind myself what the original looked like. So this one has like the. Go ahead.
Yeah, when they first showed off the original Steam controller, they had only the trackpads, but then they had like 4 buttons in the middle that you could use.
Oh, it only had one stick. It didn't have two analog sticks.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
it
but
was.
I don't
Okay.
even think that was necessarily the big problem with it. I think using the trackpad for camera controls was fine. The problem is it didn't have a D-pad and the buttons were so small.
Yeah, I think it's just like it's had that it was unconventional enough that like it was a lot for a lot of people because it was very different from what they were used to, on that. And but people who like there's definitely that crowd of people, like including one of my friends, who fell in love with it. They're like, this is fucking brilliant.
The main reason why I loved it so much for Dragon Quest Builders 2 is when building, like having the precision of a trackpad was really, really nice, especially since you could use the button combination to just lock your position. So it's like aim, lock on, just start like placing down stuff. It was great. It was an excellent way of playing that game. The best.
I'm very interested to see how the practical ergonomics of this are going to be in terms of because I know there's been some concern about the position of the trackpads being below the analog sticks. So there's some concern that like maybe the underside of your thumb, like the part of your hand there, will collide with the trackpad and might cause needless input.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
I could not be any less concerned than right now, because I remember that was the exact same problem that people foresaw being an issue with the Steam Deck, and then people got it's like, oh, this is like really ergonomic, and it's like, unless you have super tiny hands, everyone I know is like, yeah, the Steam Deck is just the most comfortable PC handheld. So I foresee this being very, very comfortable.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I'd go so far as to say just the most comfortable handheld you can buy today, period. Like, just no question. And there's one more thing. I don't know if you tried playing Monster Hunter World specifically, but people have made custom radial menu stuff for the Steam Deck and for the Steam controller and they've even added like glyphs for the icons for like potions and stuff. So if you're using the radial menu, you don't need to use the one in game. You can use the one which they've built on Steam Input, and they've actually added like the potion, mega potion and stuff. It's like insane amount of work they've done. Like when I was like looking into playing Hearts of Iron 4 and EU for like a year or two ago on Steam Deck, I just saw how much work these people put into it from the community, and they just upload it for free, and it's so seamless to download it. And once you've downloaded it, that's it. It syncs to your other devices. So it's going to be crazy, like just having this. And I believe in the video where Valve showed it, they said that whatever you do for Steam Deck will also apply to this. So it like automatically just have a shitload of control options available and community layouts.
They've they've chosen the perfect time to announce these and show these off because they've they built that infrastructure because of the Steam Deck and the success of the Steam Deck and all the work that they've invested in, not only the Proton layer for Linux, but also having the economy and versatility and freedom of the Steam input system that they implemented years ago, and how people have really made that explode in terms of finding different control schemes and the amount of options that they give people to just really customize the way that they configure their games on a control level. So it's very smart. But obviously, one of the biggest ones for many people from all the Steam hardware that was announced was the long-awaited return of the Steam machine, the 10-year anniversary, bringing it back. But obviously, there's a entirely new machine. It's very cute. People have called it, including you, James, the GameCube, because it is just a fucking small cube, modestly powerful. Small form factor, has a thin LED light at the front, along with a customizable faceplate that you can swap in and out to give it a little bit of a flavor and personality. I assume that whole market will explode for it with the faceplates. Um, James, walk us through this of the specs, what we can expect of the power of this thing. This is very exciting stuff.
So there was a Geekbench leak of a potential Valve console a few months ago. And I'll tell you right now, those specs were entirely 100% accurate. This has a mobile 6-core Zen 4 CPU that tops out at 4.8 gigahertz. It's obviously a mobile part, so it probably has less cache than a 7600. So that is something to keep in mind. It's not going to be just as powerful as a 7600 desktop CPU, even accounting for the fact that it's a lower clock speed. It probably has less cache. They haven't given direct information about that, but it is a safe assumption. And it seems to be using an overclocked 7600M RDNA 3 base, and the M stands for mobile GPU. This is not as powerful as a PS5. But if you look at the Steam hardware survey, this is stronger than the vast majority of GPUs that are represented on the Steam hardware survey. And if you look at ETA Prime, they're not great for comparisons, but they did a quick and dirty, not one-to-one comparison, but they made a similar spec hardware using a desktop Zen 3 CPU and a 6600M. So the actual GameCube Steam machine should be about, I'd say 20% faster. So you can look at that video to get a rough idea of where the performance will land. Just bump it up by 5 or 10 frames, depending on the game, would be my assumption.
Yeah, it's interesting that they built this using statistics that they accrued from their internal survey that of the hardware survey that people can voluntarily participate in for Steam, rather than looking at the competition and saying, oh, we have to one up that. They instead looked internally based on their own data that they received from user.
Yeah. I would be willing to bet that so AMD does not have mobile RDNA 4 GPUs. So that might be one of the reasons why they didn't go with an RDNA 4 GPU, because they're using mobile hardware in this to better fit the form factor. The other thing to consider is, because it's not using an RDNA 4, is that they're saying that this is targeting 4K with upscaling. That means that you're using FSR 2 or 3, and those don't look particularly good. It's not going to be as much of an issue if you're playing it on a TV, but on a monitor, I'm just going to tell you right now, unless you're playing something like Hollow Knight Silksong, you're not playing anything at 4K on this thing. My laptop has a 6800M, which is considerably stronger than this, and it has a 1440p screen, and even then I have to use upscaling in some games if I want to play it on a 1440p output. Obviously, the price is going to be everything for this. I think the main reason they haven't announced the price is that I'm not sure how much people understand this, but over the last couple of months, the prices of RAM has just skyrocketed. like actually skyrocketed.
Uh-huh.
So I would imagine that if it hadn't been for that, we would have been looking at something like $500 or $600 for the base model, and then like something like $750, $800 for the higher tier. All bets are off now. I guarantee you the main reason that they have not announced a price is because of RAM. That's the reason.
I read so RAM is actually kind of important to like my day job, but I read that the increase in the price of RAM right now is increasing at a much faster rate than the price of gold.
Yeah. So that's the reason why they have not announced the price. I would bet money on it. That's why.
So what are the specific? Oh, you don't have to get really too into the weeds of this, but what are like some of the main driving factors of like the sudden rise in RAM prices?
AI.
Just like
it's just AI.
Okay.
It's just AI. That's basically it.
Okay. Yeah. So So what can people expect then out of the Steam Machine in terms like you went a little bit about performance and you're saying, hey, don't expect like modern AAA games like Cyberpunk, for example, to like run like super smoothly on this unless you're using heavy upscaling.
It will be more than enough to run every game at a decent performance level, but you have to have like your expectations in check.
Right.
Like, this will run Monster Hunter Wilds, but I would imagine that you would want to target 30 FPS.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll run Cyberpunk, but you're not going to really be using ray tracing unless you're targeting 30 FPS. You can run it at like 1440p, like high settings at like over 60 FPS. That won't be a problem. But if you want to target 4K, you need to use upscaling, which granted, 1440p to 4K, especially on a TV, FSR isn't going to be a huge deal breaker. But I don't really think this system is for people like anyone in this call specifically, because if you're looking for a higher level of performance, you probably already know what you want. This is for people that they gave the statistic that 20% of people that own a Steam Deck have connected it to a TV using the official dock, which was wild. I didn't think it was that prevalent.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like skewing that thing because I have 2 Steam Decks and 2 Steam Deck docks. So like, that's definitely like
that's all the Kale's fault. But it's definitely like for people who like want to like play like Peak or Marvel Rivals, like very popular like games that are low spec. Hades 2, Warframe,
all the indie games that their favorite streamer or YouTuber or Northernlion, which I guess is both of those things, is playing. They're only on PC. It's like this, like Steam Deck will run most of them, but not all of them. Like at least not at like a decent enough performance level if you're playing it on a TV. Stuff like RV
just a personal anecdote. Like I have a computer that I built myself that I play most of my games on, but then I bought a custom PC to act as a home theater PC, not for media, but for like if I wanted to play a game downstairs, like not in my home office. And I didn't want to deal with a small form factor, so I paid a premium for a boutique custom PC. If I was doing that this year instead of last year, I would have been like, oh, this is perfect for that need. Like if I'm playing something on my main rig or whatever, let me play it downstairs, upload my save to the cloud, go downstairs, continue where I left off. This would have been perfect. I literally still might grab one of these, even though I have
let's say like going through. Let's say you're going like Octopath Traveler 0, for example. Really great, like game. Like this will run well on that because it's not a very demanding game.
Perfect.
For that, it'll run just fine. Like I said, my MSI Claw handheld is handling it mostly 1080p 120, no problem. So I would imagine this would definitely be able to handle it at 1440p 120, probably at 4K 60, no issues. Which I actually bring up 4K 60 because there's this one thing that a lot of people that had hands on with this and have looked at the specs have been talking about. Why is it HDMI 2.0? So here's the thing about AMD and Linux. The HDMI forum are a bunch of assholes because the AMD drivers on Linux are open source. There's stuff that are still binary blobs, so they're closed source. Like core stuff about the GPUs are still closed source, but a lot of the way that the GPU interfaces with the operating system, Linux, is open source. Because even though like stuff like the HDMI aspects would be part of the binary blob, which means that it wouldn't be open source. Because the drivers are open source at all, the HDMI forum does not allow AMD to officially support HDMI 2.1 bandwidth on Linux. So that is an HDMI 2.1 port. And if you even look at what Valve is saying, they're still trying to like convince the HDMI forum to let them use the full bandwidth. But until that's the case, they can only advertise it as 2.0 and all the restrictions that means. It'll still support VRR just fine. It'll still be able to output at 4K 120 at a lower like not bit rate, but you know what I mean, like 420, that sort of thing. And everything that like everything related to that, and it has a display port. So if you're going to use it on a monitor, that doesn't really matter anyways. Just use display port. But it is worth knowing that that limitation isn't because of anything Valve did or any choice they made. It's just that AMD, when they were developing this, was the only option, and the HDMI forum are a bunch of assholes. That's it.
And it's important to note that for both the Steam Machine and Steam Frame, both of them will have a micro SD card slot. If you want expandable storage on them as well.
And one thing that they mentioned that's really cool is because since all three of these, like the Steam Deck, the Steam Frame, and the Steam Machine, all are using Steam OS, and the way that Proton works is that they're actually like virtualizing pretty much all these games. You can just take your micro SD card from like your Steam Deck and put it in your Steam Machine, and the games will just work.
Oh yeah. And also for the Steam Machine, like you'll also have access to desktop mode. So if you want to tinker with that, like on a TV, it's there for you.
And
so
the RAM is user replaceable, not very easily, but you can. It's just laptop memory, but it's not soldered on. You can replace it if you want. By default, it has 16 gigabytes of DDR5. I don't think they gave the exact speeds. And then there is like soldered 8 gigabytes of VRAM, which might be a problem for more intensive games at higher settings. But for the type of performance level this is going for and the type of audience I feel like they're courting, it shouldn't be a huge issue. But it is something to keep in mind. If you're going to be playing something like Monster Hunter Wilds, maybe install that mod that Digital Foundry made a video about today that fixes Capcom shit.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how these will do. I'm very interested to see like.
One last thing I want to mention.
Go for it.
They explicitly pointed out that this is like a good pairing for the Steam Frame, which I agree with actually. Two things about that. One, if a game supports foveated rendering, not foveated encoding, foveated rendering, this should be plenty capable of feeding the Steam Frame at its performance level. The second thing is, since this is using an RDNA 3 GPU, I suspect they could have used RDNA 2 if they wanted, and they could have gotten like a 6800M, which would have targeted a higher performance level. But I bet you the main reason they went with RDNA 3 is because RDNA 3 has AV1 encoding support, which is very useful for stuff like VR headsets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. Yeah, but very, very to see like 4 to 5 years down the line after this comes out, what the Steam hardware survey results will look like, to see if they've like been able to penetrate the market in a way that to shift up those percentages for people to maybe go have a new baseline of like slightly better hardware for those folks. And also, I'm interested to see people take photos of their GameCube, how they plan to decorate it, accessorize it, and I'm sure a lot of people will.
Did you see that the brand is releasing an official like companion cube skin for it?
Oh, is there? That's awesome. Yeah, but I imagine people like also 3D print like new face plates and accessorize it as well. So we'll see. Yeah, that's exciting. Even if one of these were just announced in itself and be big news, but for them to just be all announced all at once was pretty exciting.
With that, we'll finally go into RPG news. So I was very okay with lingering on the technical, I guess general video game news with the hardware, because the RPG news is pretty light, but a couple interesting surprises here. We have an announcement of a new MMO that's kind of been like rumored for a long time, And this did not show up at the Sony State of Play, even though it is a Sony IP. It's the Horizon MMO. Horizon Steel Frontiers is announced, coming to PC and mobile, not announced for console at this point, being developed by NC Soft in conjunction with Guerrilla. And I'm playing a little bit of a personal stake is like, please don't be ArenaNet. Please don't be ArenaNet. ArenaNet's not working on it. It's NC Soft Korea. So that means ArenaNet's other
I don't
project
know.
is.
I don't know that's a better one or not, but yeah.
Wait,
I
no,
know
I'm
that's
just glad ArenaNet. I'm just
yeah.
glad
Okay.
ArenaNet
Yeah.
is not working on this.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Not
You're
yeah.
right.
If ArenaNet's other game, ArenaNet's a developer. They're NC Soft's like only Western studio anymore, and they're Guild Wars, and like I'm not saying it has to be Guild Wars 3, but like Horizon is not an IP that I love. But anyways,
Okay.
Horizon Steel Frontiers is announced. We've got like an announcement video, which is both like it's like a trailer plus like a dev diary sort of thing, and then there is a gameplay trailer. And yeah, it looks like Horizon. I've only played Zero Dawn, not Forbidden West. This one doesn't have Alloy. It's like a created character like you would kind of expect for an MMO. I haven't like really gone frame by frame with the combat to see like, oh, they're using this, but this is different, or what they borrowed from each individual game in terms of like the UI. Like I've not done side by side, but it looks like a Horizon game, same perspective. Doesn't have like an MMO style well, I guess it is kind of MMO style, like UI bar at the bottom.
The gameplay
But
video looks more like Monster Hunter to me because like they used the longsword in it so much in that gameplay showcase of it.
it
That
does
just
look
makes
like
it looks
a
like
Monster Hunter
it does looks like a
longsword.
longsword on Monster Hunter. Which is amusing, but you know that I'm also interested because like will this actually run on a phone because it's very detailed and
Yeah,
very graphically impressive. But I'm just like, can a phone handle this? I don't know, but it also reminds me of this one. This project is probably why Sony went after that Tencent project like
yeah.
of Motoram, that the Horizon Zero Dawn look-alike that they were um developing. And two, Jason Schreier reported this is a different Horizon project than the other multiplayer project that well, I forgot the studio's name was working on. So Sony Santa Monica, was that them?
You mean Gorilla?
Gorilla, sorry. So
And one thing I also haven't, I looked around a few of the different things to see like, is this like my best guess is that this is buy to play with like a cash shop. But I can't find any details on terms of pricing. Like subscriptions aren't very vogue anymore, but it might have like a premium set where if you do subscribe, you get a bonus. Like it's like as far as I can tell, they have not detailed monetization in any way. Um, if I had to guess, buy to play with a premium currency shop, but I don't know.
I definitely would not think this is buy to play. I'm 100% assured this will be a free to play. Obviously, they haven't announced anything, but my
Mhm.
gut feeling is it's targeting mobile devices. This was shown off
Oh,
at
mobile
G
device. That's a good
Star.
point. Yeah,
This was shown
yeah.
off at G Star. They're very, very, very heavily into the free to play market, especially at that event and that marketplace. So I think it's free to play with in-app purchases. I don't know what the in-app purchases would get you in this content. I don't know if there's like a gotcha or anything. They haven't said anything about that.
Yeah. And outside of these 2 videos, as far as I can tell, we don't have a lot of details at all. And I am correct, it did not show up at the State of Play, even though Guerrilla, like one of their studio design directors, like does speak to the announcement here. Like they are working with the Sony studio, but it is being, it seems like it's mostly an NC Soft court. So it's an interesting partnership
Yeah,
regardless.
they're definitely like there's an interesting rivalry already happening now because you have Monster Hunter Outlanders on the horizon
Mhm.
too. No pun intended. Said that I'm like, oh
Mhm.
shit. Um, but yeah, I mean that's targeting mobile. It's a Monster Hunter experience. So it'll be interesting to see how these will coexist side by side. Then who will get like kind of the player base and mind share once both of these are both on the market.
The other announcements this week are 2 announcements for DLCs for games we've talked about this year on the podcast. One of which is an announcement coming out early next year in January for Dynasty Warriors Origins. It is Dynasty Warriors Origins Visions of the Four Heroes. Uh, I don't know if you want to take this one, Josh, because I haven't
Yeah.
played the base game, so I can't really speak to like what the DLC, like what they've shown
Yeah,
in
so like
context of the base game.
in Dynasty Warriors Origins, you had the very classic factions from the Three Kings of Wei Wu and Shu. You could
Mhm.
go pursue their storylines. And then part of the Dynasty Warriors lineage is some of their releases, like in the Extreme Legends expansions, you had like what if scenarios because there are other factions besides those three Wei Wu and Shu factions that obviously existed and participated in the Three Kingdoms and then, the rise and fall of them. So these are what if scenarios based on like the yellow turbans of Zhang Jiao. Then you have Dong Zhuo's faction that was relevant later on, especially during Hulao Gate, Yuan Shao, and Lu Bu. So this DLC is basically more storyline roots. I don't know exactly how extensive they will be because I imagine they won't be as extensive as Wei Wu and Shu because they were full-fledged campaigns. I imagine these will be slightly smaller scope because of there's 4 of them and they didn't exist for as long as they did, and they'll have new companions like Zhuhe and Diao Chan as part of this expansion, so you can temporarily play as them like you could with the other companions in Dynasty Warriors Origins. And they also showed off 2 new weapon types, the bow and the rope dart, in the trailer, and they also detailed that those will be the new weapon types that you can go play around with. It's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. I still really hold Dynasty Warriors Origins at high regard, even though it was one of the earliest releases this year. It's still one of my favorite games of this year, and I definitely plan on going back into it when this DLC drops. This will be dropping on January 22nd for all the platforms that it's being released on, PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. And I believe that'll be the same day that the Nintendo Switch 2 version drops as well. So that's going to be awesome. I can't wait to check it out.
The other DLC that was announced was a DLC for Elden Ring Nightreign. So this is called The Forsaken Hollows. It is launching on December 4th, so not too long from now. Primarily bringing 2 new classes, new bosses, and the shifting Earth environment. Now, Josh, not to hand it right back to you, but I have not another game I've not played the base game. So when I read shifting Earth environment, what does that mean? Just like another map, like another
I
ring that
imagine so.
closes in on you?
I
Yeah.
only played the beta. I never got the full release of Nightreign, but from what I understand,
Oh,
it's like
okay.
I believe like a new map that people will be able to explore. Obviously, new bosses, and I believe there's like 2 new Nightfarers as well. I don't know if they detailed them. I didn't look too much into it, but a lot of people continue to play the. I don't know what how the player base is like, but from the friends that I've seen play it, they had a great time, but they've moved on. So I'm interested to see how many people will come back into Nightreign for this DLC drop. I don't think they announced the release date yet for this DLC drop.
Mikhail's thing says December 4th.
December 4.
I
Okay,
was
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was trusting Mikhail.
Okay.
So, into other things that kind of came out of the state of play. You had mentioned before we started recording that you had some thoughts on this, and Adam might as well once you describe to him what it is because you haven't seen the trailer. A new trailer for one of the big releases early next year, Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. And we have spoken about this game in a couple different contexts when it was first announced, in context with the HD2D remakes that just released, and now they have the follow-up trailer showing a few surprises for what people returning to this game can expect from the remake coming out early next year.
Yeah.
I think this is the first thing they've shown that I actively dislike.
Go on.
I understand how in a vacuum this sounds cool because, like in the original, Kiefer leaves the party and then he never comes back. But then that leads to the situation later in the game where you just find his grave and the finality of it. And so adding in a extra content where it's like, oh, you see him again. It kind of like mutes that. It feels like to me. I don't know. I think this was. I just don't know, man.
So to tee it up a
He-
little bit,
yeah.
about halfway through the trailer, I have not played the original game. So for people who are like me, who are interested in this game, like finally I can play a version of Dragon Quest VII. About halfway through this 90-second trailer, it cuts to black, and then it shows Kiefer like being found by the party. And now I've learned through you guys the context of this. Like this is all new stuff, and this is also in consideration or with respect to the fact that Square Enix is also on the record saying that this game has already streamlined the game in some other areas. So now we're looking at this weird trade-off space where some parts of the original game have been ostensibly like polished away, and in addition, they're adding new stuff that is contentious for the reasons that James kind of just touched on. So weird, I guess. I don't know another way to put it. Just like, huh, okay.
Yeah, because Kiefer is like sort of like your older mentor figure in the original, and at a point in the story, is leaves the party for reasons. And there was, like as James mentioned, there was it was a bittersweet like departure, but definitely a sense of finality and accepting that he left the party. Um, and now to see this is like I don't know, man. Like I feel like the more that they show of this, I'm like I still love Dragon Quest VII. I'm still gonna play it, this reimagined
I think
version.
the
I just
I
don't know if I. It's so difficult to like agree with what they're putting down on the table that I'm just like I feel like I just have to play it for myself and hope for the best at this point.
Yeah, I think I'll still enjoy it for what it is, but it's just like one of those things where like the thematics of the original game in regards to Kiefer as a character was very deliberate. Like even
Yeah.
in the 3DS remake, which is where I'm coming from. And it's
Mhm.
like I don't like the only way I think it could work if it's exclusively like post game stuff and it doesn't directly. Because I'll be honest, the way I'm seeing this is that I could see a world where this works. Because to me, this reminds me of like the Dawn of Souls stuff for Final Fantasy II, that isn't in the Pixel remaster, but kind of does a similar thing where it's like these characters that went with you, like joined you on this journey. They all fucking died, but then you have a separate thing that deals with them in the afterlife. This isn't that, but if they did something that kind of played with it, I think the only way this works is if it's after the reveal with the grave, and that's like an understood like subtext to these sections of the game. They absolutely cannot have this happen before you see that grave. That's my thought on the matter.
Adam, so does play through Dragon Quest VII right now. Again, I mean, this is kind of your second playthrough, but on a different platform. Um, I'm interested. Like, hey, do you like Kiefer? What do you think of Kiefer?
I don't remember the very, very end of the 3DS version. It's just been too long. But do you
Yeah.
remember how the end of the PlayStation 1 version ends? Like right before it says like final the end. I think it literally says the end. Do you
I don't
remember?
remember the specifics. I don't.
So
I'll be
throughout the
honest.
game, or basically at the end of the game, your character is like the son of a fisherman, and you finally get to go out on your dad's boat to travel with him as he goes fishing, kind of like a homecoming full circle moment. And
Yeah.
then you find I think it's like a letter in a bottle or a stone tablet, I forget, like a message. You find it, you fish it up, and it's a message from Kiefer. And he basically says, if you find this, I want you to let my father know that his son has finally found his way in the world. And Hero, I want you to know that we are friends no matter how far we are from each
Oh
other.
yeah. I
So that's
remember.
how the game ends, is you get this sort of like bittersweet
Yeah.
final
Yes.
message from Kiefer. That's how the game ends. That's the end,
Mhm.
literally. So yeah, that's kind of strange to you can't do that anymore, or maybe, I don't know, it'll be weird.
I don't know.
Yeah, I really do think the only way this could work without completely compromising the original like Dragon Quest VII experience as it was is to have it be post game. So it's like it's already understood how things ended and nothing changes. It's just, and even then, I don't think it's like surf proof by any stretch of the imagination. but I won't entirely discount it. I just think it's a very
We're all just waiting we're all waiting for the release of this thing, just to be like, well,
Yeah.
let's see how this went.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, I want to be surprised and be pleasantly like, oh, okay, wow, they really did pull it. That's like my hope for it, right? Like, I hope this is awesome and cool. I'll love it. It's my hope.
Few other things of news here. The team at Rebel Wolves, this is the ex-Witcher devs that are working on the Blood of Dawnwalker game. Like, basically, their take on another similar styled fantasy RPG. They I think in June or July, they showed off like a big 30-minute gameplay. Like they did like their first like re-announcement trailer. I remember saying that I felt pretty good about it. Then they showed their big gameplay overview, and I remember feeling a little less good about it. Well, now they're doing gameplay overview part 2. They've taken feedback. They've shown another like 30 minutes of progressing through a quest in that game. One of the key components of the game is that the main character is like a vampire at night only. That's why he's a Dawnwalker. He's human during the day. So they kind of touch on that and how it ties into the story and the gameplay of whether or not you can take a quest during the day or during at night. What options are available to you? So I watched through this gameplay. It's one of the games of 2026 that I'm really excited for. The gameplay trailer, I did appreciate that it's still pretty raw in terms of like they don't they don't sugarcoat it. It's like it's got some like pop in. It's got some like animations that are hopefully temporary. So I do kind of appreciate the candor. It's not a vertical slice where they're trying to do like smoke and mirrors. It's very much like this is beta footage. It's still in development. Bear with us. Um, I think the voice acting is really good. The main character here is I couldn't place his voice actor, but I recognized it. It's Sane from 100 Heroes. I I what is shown in the gameplay footage, I think the voice acting is pretty well done. The gameplay that I showed, I thought was pretty good. I did read the comments of the YouTube video, and I kind of wish I did it. Some people are saying like, I appreciate the honest look at this. I appreciate that you've gone, taking feedback into account. So now they've changed like the camera position, so people don't feel like the motion sickness or as much, or the combat feels a bit more fluid. Of course, you also see the comments like, "This is the real Witcher 4." And I'm like, "What does that even mean?" Like the game that is
Okay.
explicitly not Witcher 4 is the real Witcher 4. Like it's very clearly Witcher inspired, and you can see the lineage there. But like having a statement like that is just like, what does that even mean?
So funny. Yeah, that's such a nothing comment. I love it.
Yeah. So no, yeah, if you're interested in like if you liked Witcher 3 at all or that style of game at all, it's fun to watch through. They just it's a pretty light editing pass. Here's 30 minutes of gameplay of their upcoming game, like, as it currently is in development. So it's a fun watch through.
It's good that they're just doing, hey, like pretty much raw gameplay with some like time skip stuff. But it's a way better thing than like what they did in the months leading up to it, where like they kept doing the light teasing.
Yeah.
Here's a CG trailer, light teasing, random social media saying like here's something like in a like 3 sentences about lore. Okay, great, awesome.
And also one key aspect of this game that I think is going to frustrate me, but in a good way, is that you have like an overarching quest to like save your family within 22 days, or 22 is what it is in the demo, in a certain window of time. And as you undertake other quests, it'll say like, if you do this action, it'll pass time. So basically, the idea is that you can't do everything. You will have to pick and choose what you investigate because you're on a time limit.
Yeah,
And
that's a
I'm like,
really
man, I
fascinating
want
thing.
to I want to be able to do everything, but also I do think you can probably make a more compelling game if you don't allow that, as long as they hit the right like balance, and that's going to be tricky
I'm
because they
sure
actually
there will
showed in the
be
game
there'll
like.
be guides like Persona 3 and Persona 4, like the getting the perfect playthroughs. I'm sure there'll be
I guess
guides
that's
like
true.
if you
Like
want to optimize
metaphor,
your
they said the same
playthrough.
thing. Like you won't be
Uh,
able to do it all in metaphor. It's like, nah,
yeah.
you could. So
So
good
I'm
point.
interested. Like I'd be way more interested if like there's actually no way to get to everything, and you are forced to like kind of make your own path and to customize your playthrough. So
Mhm.
but I'm sure the first thing people will try to do is like, how do I optimize a playthrough? Then
Yeah.
you'll have here's a step-by-step game guide. Maybe by us, who knows? Of like, here's how to see everything in one playthrough.
Mhm. We mentioned, I think, last week that the team over at Bandai Namco for the upcoming Code Vein 2 was going to probably they did a trailer last week for something MagMell. What's her first name? I'm looking it up. Lou MagMell, and we're like, oh, they're probably going to go through each character in turn as we get closer to release. And this week they have Noah MagMell, one of her ancestors, and we kind of mentioned that this game kind of has like a buddy system as you go back in time and you partner with like the different characters. So this is probably the first one you get outside of Lou. So we're probably going to see these once per week or so as we get closer to release. So last week Lou MagMell, this week Noah MagMell. We'll get others as we go forward.
He looks like Poochie from JoJo Part 5. Yeah, I'm gonna put a picture in the staff chat. He's just basically Poochie from JoJo. It's awesome.
Didn't another one of the buddies like look like a fighting game character?
Probably.
The woman with the pink hair and an eye patch, like Baigen.
Baiken from Guilty Gear?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, so they
Oh,
have,
yeah,
she
looks like
Jose looks like like I don't play either of those games, but I was like, this character looks like a fighting game character that I know.
Sure enough.
But yeah, so probably get to see those once per week as we go forward. We got a gameplay preview for Arknights Endfield. This is going into beta test 2 at the end of the month. So this is kind of like a gameplay preview of like if you sign up for the beta test, these are things you'll be able to do. Even though a lot of this trailer is still CG, it does show some of like because this is like got the tower defense like base building aspect to it. I've seen it described as like Genshin meets Factorio, and I'm like, oh, okay. But halfway through the trailer, you see like some sort of cattle taking a shit, so that's in there. But you also do see some base building. You see some anime cutscenes, and I believe at the time of recording, signups for beta 2 are still ongoing until November 17th. So by the time this goes up, you might have one day left, but the beta test kicks off at the end of the month on the 28th.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see when this game finally releases in some year, whether it'll actually like. It just feels like the most identity crisis game, upcoming game to me. Where ever since like this game was first announced and then like shown off, they kept like revising it because it feels like they don't know, but they hear what people are saying about it, and they're like, "Oh, people don't like it. We need to like revamp big parts about this, like the combat, for example." Like saw big rework ever since like its earliest reveals. So I'm very interested to see like not necessarily playing it, but seeing like what the player reception will be like and whether it will be able to find an audience that sticks with it, because it just feels like they're not confident in whatever direction they're taking this game. They keep on pushing back its release. Now we're like it went through like how many closed betas into like and then through a public beta, and now we're on beta test 2 after how many closed betas up to it. It's just it feels so confused on what it wants to be and is not confident in the direction.
And I think that covers it for like trailers. Here's one thing that is I'm trying to remember, sorry to stammer on that. The game here is something that was announced just a few months ago in August. Xseed was going to release the Corpse Party Tetralogy Pack for Switch. But then observing people in the last couple of weeks saw like a few delistings and like, uh-oh, what does this mean? And Xseed has basically come out saying that the physical release is canceled and the digital games that hadn't been released prior are also no longer launching. And the explanation is the Tetralogy Pack does not comply with current platform guidelines.
Yeah, so this is basically the same shit that happened with Neptunia a year ago. A little more than a year ago, actually. Which, at the time, we didn't exactly know it was probably causing the change in platform policies. But it's pretty clear this is just another example of, like, the payment processor stuff. Now, it's Nintendo's overreaction to it, but it's the core issue is the reason that they're probably being so like flaky with games is because of that, which is
That really sucks. So like for all the parties involved to try and make this happen, and it just collapsed. Feels like at the last stretch of it, because of recent developments in the marketplace.
Yeah,
it sucks.
it
It
sure
sucks.
fucking sucks that that the people that latched on to cryptocurrencies were grifters, because maybe the original idea behind that might have had some merit.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, in concept, there was something there until it became
Yeah.
a very corrupted sort of scheme. It also what also sucks is like the visual that Xseed put out for this. That is a really bad text color on a text background, barely
Yeah.
legible. Oh god, I don't know. Look, underpaid graphic designer that you deserve way more than what you're probably making, but please, man, you need to make this stuff
White
readable.
text on a light gray background.
Yeah,
Light
this
gray background.
definitely not the most legible message that they visual that they released for this, unfortunately, as well. So I think the only way you can get this is like through a physical Japanese release that'll have because it has the English
Yes.
script in it.
Yes.
And yeah, well, if you like, there's still ways to buy it and and
Yeah.
play it, but it's just not the most ideal, obviously, method, not the most easily accessible
At least
method.
for Xseed, I imagine this is probably one of their least not what's the best way of putting this? I'm sure that while this will have an impact on their financials, they were not at all like depending on this to be doing okay, like as a company, because they
Oh yeah,
have Story Seasons, Rune Factory, Daemon X Machina. So it's like at least they had no control over this, and it would really fucking suck if it was a project that they needed to sell to like be in the black, which
yeah, if it was like a core pillar like Story of Seasons.
yeah. Which again isn't to diminish like these are real games, and they've
Yeah, of
published
course.
these before for years, for like over a decade, and to see them like basically being told by platform holders, or I guess just Nintendo at this point, but who knows, like considering the content in Corpse Party, I think it's only a matter of time before it becomes an issue on PC or at least Steam as well.
Yeah,
So.
they said they're still working with mages to try and bring Corpse Party 2 Darkness Distortion to the West,
Oh
obviously.
my god, that's especially crazy because it's like poor fucking mages. They had the problem of Chaos Head on Steam, but
Yeah.
but Nintendo was fine. What if it's the opposite situation where Steam's like, oh yeah, we're fine with these, and then Nintendo's like, if I was at mages, I'd be like, what the fuck do you want from us?
Yeah, I imagine so. I'd be very pissed behind the scenes. I'd be very pissed if I was them.
Yeah.
So we'll see if the situation improves anytime soon. We'll keep an eye on it, but it just sucks all around. We'll see what the future holds for that.
One sales update, Kingdom Come Deliverance II has hit the 4 million copy milestone. Of course, it just had its final DLC pack release earlier in the month. So definitely going to be a game we're going to be talking about in terms of end of year consideration. I need to boot it back up and play that last DLC, but big milestone for Warhorse.
Yeah, I need to
And
play it
who
as
knows
well.
what they're working on
I
next.
don't think I'm
Yeah.
gonna have the time to play this because I
I have no idea.
Well, you don't have 100 hours just to throw at it
Yeah.
in a couple weeks. Come on.
Yeah, but congratulations to Warhorse.
Unfortunately, I might have had 100 hours, but I am playing Octopath Traveler 0, a game that PR assures me is 100 hours long. So
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, Brian. I decided to do the Inazuma hole, and it's a super game, and they said
that's a
300
game that's
hours
like
minimum.
300 hours. It's like,
Well,
man, imagine being
same
a,
reason I haven't played 100 line. Just like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't have
Yeah.
3,000 hours.
I felt so satisfied when a PR, like not even a usual PR person we work with, reached out for end of year considerations. Like, have you played the 100 line? I was like, yes, actually. And
I was able to at least get some routes of it done, but
Yeah,
I
I
obviously need to
haven't.
get through it more.
The one thing I need to do before Game of the Year is at least see second scenario. I feel like that's the one I really need to see before end of year. I would like to see the big like Uchikoshi route, but that requires a bunch of investment, and I think that's like 50, 60 more hours that I don't necessarily think I can squeeze. Second scenario, I can squeeze. That's probably like 10, 15 hours. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Big props to Warhorse for like a big 4 million sold for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. That's universally praised in one hell of a game. Like they really nailed it. Congrats to them.
A couple other release dates and some smaller DLC announcements here. Super Robot Wars is just in a couple days going to get its first DLC set. It's going to. I'll let you take this. I recognize one of these, and you know which one. But
Speaking
what
of
are they adding to?
Speaking of another game, we need to wrap up because like I have like over fucking 90+ hours, maybe over 100 hours at this point. I'm like, I really need to finish this game, but I'm near the end. But yes, DLC 1 for Robot Wars Y is coming November 20th or 21st, depending on the time zone. And the units coming to this, or the series coming to this, is Galaxy Cyclone Bryger, the Big O, which a lot of people love the Big O, internationally, and Futo Pi, the Portrait of Kamen Rider Skull. So if for people who never thought that Kamen Rider would be coming to Super Robot Wars, this is their time. With Bryger, they're adding obviously the Bryger unit, playable unit, and then for the support characters that grant you buffs in battle, you'll have Kid, Isaac, Bowie, and Omachi from that series joining in. From the Big O side, obviously the Big O itself coming in as the playable unit with piloted by Roger Smith. And then Dorothy will be the assist for that series. Then for the Kamen Rider Skull, you'll have it's playable characters will be Kamen Rider Double, Kamen Rider Skull, and Kamen Rider Excel. Tokime as the assist on there. I don't exactly know how they're gonna do like the implementation yet. I know they're gonna have like a mini campaign first before they join up with the rest of your characters. I'll probably check it out because I'm still going through it whenever I can. So yeah, and that'll be interesting to see, especially because Kamen Rider, man, people love Kamen Rider, and that's just really bizarre to see in a Super Robot Wars game, just like how Ultraman came out, Super Robot Wars 30. That was interesting.
And we talked about this next one briefly, but we got a date. It showed up in the state of play for Monster Hunter Wild's next title update, but we don't really have a lot of concrete details because they're going to be doing an event early in December to do a showcase to detail what's coming up in title update 4, but it is scheduled for December 16th. All they've really said is that it's going to expand endgame content and supposedly bring in performance improvements for the PC version. So is that gonna mess with, like, the implementation of this, like, graphics mod that Digital Foundry
Oh yeah, people are
just
gonna
kind
have
of
to redo it
platformed?
again. It probably
Yeah,
won't take too long to fix it, but it's like that's one of those things where it's crazy finding out that if they just had an optional download to be like, I am fine with having a larger file size, just decompress my textures. Pretty much all the major stuttering is gone.
yeah.
The gift that keeps on giving, they say. The
I
multiple discoveries throughout the year about this
like
PC port.
I've been saying since like February. I don't normally say this because it feels out of pocket, it feels rude, but this PC port has genuinely been incompetent, especially when it comes to the HD texture pack, where literally no hardware that you have is able to use that HD texture pack without heavy stuttering. I would know. Look at my PC specs.
Is
Insane.
this unironically the crisis, our modern day crisis?
No, because there was actually a reasonable explanation for why that game ran the way that it did.
Fair enough. So yeah, I mean, we'll see this next major update coming December 16th. That they kept saying, hey, this will have all the PC. We're gonna fix up that PC port with this update. Well, we'll see next month what they've done then. I'm sure many people will be testing it out and seeing for themselves. Is it true? Did did you promise us? Did you deliver on your promise? We'll see.
I've kept the game installed because, like, I was thinking maybe I'll go back to it, and maybe over the holiday I'll say, like, "Alright, let's see how it goes." Before, like, I had to roll back my GPU drivers just to get it to load or not crash. So hopefully that's not the case anymore.
just double click the exe, your computer just starts smoking. It's like, oh no, what have you
Yep.
done?
No Sleep for Konami Date from AI The Somnium Files is getting its Xbox and PlayStation port on February 26th. Of course, it released last summer on Switch 1, Switch 2, and PC. And also a console port, Wandering Sword, one of our surprise games from 2023, is getting a PS5 edition in the middle of next year. I think this is one of the furthest out dates that we have for 2026. On May 26th next year, Wandering Sword will release on PS5. This will also be a complete edition of the game. Oh, this is for context, the wuxia style like HD 2D. If you look at our 2023 game of the year, it was within our top 5. Adam thought very highly of it and wrote the review for it. But Adam, you never followed up with like any of the DLC that they added, like the Secrets of the Eastern Sea expansion, or did you play that?
No, I never did.
So this new version of the game will include the previous DLC, including that expansion. It will also have Japanese and Chinese voiceover. And I was trying to find details about whether or not the voiceover would be added to the PC version. I could not find the primary source, but according to a Steam comment, they say the producer of the game mentioned on Billy that the Japanese voice acting will be updated simultaneously on PC. Now, I can't navigate Billy myself to confirm that, but all but confirm that it will also be updated to the PC version. But
That's cool. Yeah, I mean,
That's
people
good
who
because it reminds me of how like Noctuary, when it got ported to consoles, they had a new English translation, which is like that's good. The English
Oh, yeah.
translation on the PC version was not good, and they said on the Steam community forums, it's like no, it's going to be exclusive to the console version. It's like great,
Oh, that's weird that it's exclusive to the console version. Wow.
probably because the publisher of the console versions funded the new translation. I'd
I
imagine.
see. Yeah, that
I
assume there's user mods.
Yeah, probably, but I'm not sure if that game is popular enough for that to happen. I remember when I was playing through it, and I do need to get back to my playthrough. I eventually just gave up and started playing in Japanese because it was a much better translation.
Wow, that's rough then. Holy crap.
I mean, it makes sense. Like it's much easier to probably have a decent translation from Chinese to Japanese rather than from
it's definitely
Chinese to
difficult.
English, especially if they're doing like. I imagine what they did is they probably translated it from Chinese to Japanese to English because that seems like if they didn't, they probably would have had a better end result if they did.
Yeah, I get your. But yeah, but for PS5 players, if you have time next year around this time, you should go check out this game. It's a pretty damn cool RPG. Adam and I and several others at the site thought pretty highly of it when it came out on PC. It's it's one of those games that like it really you get that experience of like powering up. Like you feel like dog shit at the beginning. You feel like you can't do anything. Then throughout the course of the game, you're learning other like fighting styles and moves from other people around the world to like power up your character. It's really good at making you go through that progression of power and feeling like, hey, I'm moving up in the world. So it's a pretty damn cool game.
And that covers us for this week's episode. It's been a while since we've had our 3-hour podcast, but we managed to do it this week. So yeah, next week we're going to be returning, and it'll be the last week before before at least the Thanksgiving holiday for us in the States. So not a lot of we're going to plan to do it behind the scenes, figuring out our schedule for the rest of the week or for the rest of the year, and we'll let you guys know as soon as we nail it down. But not a lot of regular episodes of the podcast left in 2025. So we'll be doing some wrap up next week about some games people are still working on, things that people are returning to or trying to finish up before the end of the year, planning for December, exactly when we're going to do our game of the year cast, all that sort of stuff. So next week will be a standard episode.
I would wager we probably have 2 podcasts left because I assume we don't want to do it Thanksgiving weekend.
We'll see.
Right.
Sometimes we do it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
We've done the
We'll see,
Thanksgiving episode before, and we just with a smaller cast or whatever. But yeah, we'll make some decisions, and we're not being coy. We'll let you know as soon as we know, so that you don't expect an episode and we don't have one or something like that. So we'll see. Yeah, we will be back next week, but exactly what we're going to be talking about, I'm not 100% sure. We'll find out when we get there.
For who knows, maybe that Thanksgiving podcast will just be me just rambling about Inazuma 11 for like 3 hours to myself. That's it. It's
There
an
you
awesome Thanksgiving episode.
Rambling to
Well, I do
Americans
want-
about soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple November releases I haven't got to yet that I should be able to squeeze in. Like I can't commit to it completely, but I do want to play that Rue Valley Disco Elysium so maybe I can.
Oh yeah, that
get
did come
in the
out
next couple
too.
weeks.
Crap, I forgot.
I need to sometime this month. I need to just sit down and play Look Outside, especially since I was hearing like Junior talk about how it's very much a contender for best art style and best soundtrack. I've heard nothing but good things about it. It is 100% an RPG, and they did release that 2.0 patch, so I have no excuse. I need to just sit down and do it. It's not even that long.
I don't know. The one of the sex games that come out on Steam, like was one of them highly regarded. Maybe I need to get around to that and represent it on your podcast.
There you go. So yep, visit us at rpgsite.net. Hit that articles tab. You'll see all the reviews, previews, and Mikhail performance features up on the site from the last couple of weeks. So you can find RPG Site on all the social media networks. Just search for RPG Space Site, and you should be able to find us. Join the Discord, discord.gg/RPG Site. From whatever podcast service you listen to this podcast, leave us a like, leave us a rating. It always helps us out. We will be back next week with another episode of the Tetracast. So until you hear from us next time, stay safe, take care, and we'll talk to y'all later.